Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. And for all those joining us live this morning via our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Winnipeg Jets talk this morning, comprehensive analysis and discussion. Nice to see so many of you joining us bright and early in the chat room. It's almost like we just left you only about, about 8.5 hours ago. So nice. I hope everyone had a nice sleep, a nice rest, and back right at it this morning with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Good morning, Philip in Manchester of the United Kingdom. Nice to see so many of you joining us from all across the hockey world. The Winnipeg Jets diaspora is a large one, and it's so great to see so many of you this morning alongside Ezra Ginsburg, I suppose, virtually alongside Ezra Ginsburg, virtually alongside Dave Minuk. I am your host, Drew Mindell, and we are here to talk about the Winnipeg Jets, victorious last night against the Calgary Flames by a 3-2 margin. The rematch goes later on tonight, and then again, of course, the third game of the three-game series on Monday evening. A busy time for the Winnipeg Jets, a busy time for Illegal Curve Hockey. Gentlemen, good to see you. Before we go any further, I know I'm a little bit ahead of myself, but a happy Passover to you, gentlemen.
Yeah, where's your matzah, Drew?
Upstairs in the closet. It'll be removed coming up in about 8 hours time or so is when we just had our last bread. We had some French toast, some challah French toast. Now
Nice.
that's done, we're going to move on to fried matzah tomorrow with for Passover, and that'll be the sustenance for the next week or so, but it's always a good time. Usually this is playoff season. Normally when Passover comes, that means there's playoff hockey in the NHL. Obviously, we know that's not going to be the case this year, given the late start to the season. But
it's
nonetheless,
Passover this year, though. Usually, it's never the same. But usually it's closer to the first week of April, right? So I don't mind the early Passover, especially in a year in which, as you mentioned, Drew, we've got hockey, regular season hockey, I should say, until the first week of May. So obviously, the last year has not been what you would say is normal, but. I love matzah. I love, even if it's just butter. Like, I realize some people, like to put things like jam and cream cheese, and that's fine. But I'm a traditional butter guy.
Do you want to break it to Ezzy, Dave, that the first week of April is next week? Or should we just let him look at a calendar eventually?
Don't worry about it. Just keep moving on.
Just keep moving on? Okay, anyways, that's Ezra's matzah recipes notwithstanding. We're going to talk about the Winnipeg Jets.
It's a week early. That's what I meant. It's like a week early.
Drew, I don't get a little preamble here. Like, what's going on here?
You said let's move on. I thought.
Well, let's move on from Ezzy, but I didn't mean that.
Oh, okay, Dave Minuk, let's go. Come on, share some of that wisdom with us.
Judaism.
Nothing Passover related. But I was going to suggest that we got quite a few people here in the chat. So what does that mean? Smash that like button. Do it right now. Everybody. Do it right now. That's how we start the show.
You know what I like, boys? Just this is as an aside, and then we can get into the Jets talk. But I forget who it was. I think it was a local doctor here in Winnipeg that said, like, everything they know about Jewish people comes from our show. And I was like, oh boy, if someone's getting all of their Jewish information from our show, aside from Dave M, obviously, who is a reputable source, that might be a little bit of a problem. But I'm kidding. We always like to have fun. But let's get into the hockey here, boys.
Exactly right. That's first of all, got to wish a shout out, happy birthday to our buddy Sean Udo, who's in the chat room. Speaking of a doctor, there you go. Happy birthday, Mr. Udo, Dr. Udo. I hope it's a great day. Hope you have some fun with the family and everything else celebrating. This would be your 36th birthday, if I'm not mistaken.
I think if we combine, boys, if the three of us combine, we might be as smart as Sean, but I'm not sure. We probably still aren't, but.
It's anything to do with our intelligence probably isn't worth having any follow-up conversations about.
Yeah, and Sean's a neurologist, so I look forward to being one of his test cases one day.
We're just sending you like Homer when he gets reassigned to the Army Air Force Base for additional examination. Boys. That's what we're doing with you.
I think sometimes we look at the chat, we have to listen to what the people are saying. Rob Somerville is saying, "Let's get it going." Let's go.
Let's get it going.
Listen to Rob. This
has been a way too long preamble. Let's start the hockey talk already.
Last night, Winnipeg Jets 3-2 victors over the Calgary Flames. And, it's been a good week for the Winnipeg Jets. Last Saturday, night, after the Jets lost to the Edmonton Oilers for the second consecutive game, people were a little nervous. Maybe they weren't so excited about what the week was in store for the Winnipeg Jets, but clearly it's been a good week. It was a good night last night. 3-1 on the week now for the Jets. Obviously victorious by that 3-2 margin last night. They take care of business against the Vancouver Canucks on Monday and Wednesday. So right now the Winnipeg Jets, after that very brief hiccup, things are back to normal for this team, and you saw it last night, jumping out to that 2-0 lead and then hanging on for that 3-2 regulation time victory.
Yeah, absolutely, Drew. And we talked about it on last night's post-game show. Like, yeah, the Jets lost those 2 games against the Oilers, but they were close games. And so I don't think that there should have been too many fans that were nervous. I think it was more so just because the Jets have had such a consistent year, and that was the first time that the team had lost 2 regulation games in a row. So you're thinking like, oh, is this going to turn into, like a 3-game losing streak or something like that? But I mean, look at who they were going up against. Like, all due respect to these 2 teams, I mean, these teams just, I don't think, have any chance of getting into the playoffs, especially after this last little stretch here. And, Dave mentioned this, like, if Calgary can't pull out a win tonight against the Jets, and especially if they lose the next 2 games to the Jets, and why wouldn't we think that the Jets are going to win these 2 games? Like, based on the Flames play yesterday, there's nothing that would make you think that the Flames are going to win 1 or 2 of these games. And then the Flames are pretty much out of it, because at that point, I believe they would have 6 more games played than Montreal, because if I'm not mistaken, the Flames have played 4 more games than Montreal. Yeah. So at that point, if you're 4 points behind Montreal and they have 6 games in hand, and they're going to obviously, start playing soon. I don't know if it's this coming Monday when their first game is scheduled, but I know it's coming right up.
Monday is the target date, and my understanding is there haven't been any additional cases for coming out of the Montreal Canadiens organization. So it seems like Monday will be the day that the Habs get back into action, and at that point in time, to your point, Ezzy, they will have 5 games in hand on the Calgary Flames.
Sorry, so right now they have 3 games in hand, and they're going to have 5 games in hand. Pardon me, 4.
That's right.
Well, then
simple math.
Oh, sorry, because the Jets and Flames play Monday. Right. So,
that's right.
So I said 6. It's actually 5. Thank you for correcting me, Drew.
That's what I'm here for.
So I mean, yeah, exactly. And so they're going to be in tough to even grab that final playoff spot in the North Division. So yeah, it was a really good week for the Jets. Like, yeah, the Canucks were a little bit in those games, maybe for a period or 2, but the Jets outscored them 9-1. So the Canucks didn't put up much of a fight. And if it wasn't for Thatcher Demko, boys, those games could have been much worse. And yes, Connor Hellebuck played well in those games, but when you're looking at this week as a whole, it's since that second loss to Edmonton, it's pretty much gone as well as it could. And I think one of the things that you have to like the most, in addition to Hellebuck's play, right? We talked about that. Hellebuck's only allowed 3 goals in the last 3 games. You have to love the way that third line is putting the puck in the net. And it's not just Andrew Kopp and his 4 goals. Lowry's putting the puck in the net. Appleton's playing well. We know that those guys just love to drive the net. They love to play down low. So, things are going very well for the Jets. They have huge games coming up next week at home against Toronto. And obviously, we're going to see some flip-flopping. But I think, we're going to see that from now until early May, boys. Like, I think, we're going to see the Jets, the Oilers, and the Leafs battling it out for top spot in the North Division. And until a team goes on a 5 or 6 game winning streak, which the Jets might do here, but it's going to be tough for them to pull ahead, in the next week or so. But those 3 teams are going to be battling out, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. Last night when the Jets had that 2-0 lead, you didn't think it was going to be evaporating like the way it had against the Oilers. It just didn't seem like that Flames team really had that pushback, that like I said, I didn't anticipate them being able to pull it off. And when Milan Lucic did what he did against Mason Appleton and then against Neil Pionk, at that point it was, obviously it was close because the Jets hadn't blown them out. Markstrom's still a very good goaltender, and so it wasn't as if he was having a terrible game. The Jets had blown him up for 4 or 5 goals, right? So you've got a situation where you didn't have a team that had run the score up and it was insurmountable. The Flames could have, in theory, come back. They had a lot of opportunities, when they had the 6-on-4 with the late penalty against the Jets, but it just didn't feel like, if you look at their goals, really, their goals were fluky goals on Connor Hellebuck, right? The one goes off Josh Morrissey and in. And the other one, the Chuck one also was kind of like he was just in front, he slid in behind, and so it really wasn't a function of the Jets, the Flames really, having that opportunity to kind of, you felt that they were in it. It wasn't as if they really had dominated the Jets and got in that position to come back the way the Oilers really pushed back on Winnipeg. So to me, and again, we talked about it. This is the whole point of this is that you're a desperate team. And every time the Jets have been in that situation, not as a desperate team, but just as a team that needed to have a response, the Jets have been able to have that proper response. And I don't care if it's because your goaltender is one of the best goaltenders in the NHL. You play the cards that you're dealt. And if that's one of the cards that you've been dealt, which they have, then people cannot lament the fact that they have one of the best goaltenders because that's just their reality. But the truth is the Jets have been able to respond accordingly whenever they've faced, quote, adversity, which really is for them now 2 games at most in terms of regulation losses. But even after just a single loss, they've been able to respond accordingly. And that's not what we're seeing from the Calgary Flames. We're seeing from the Calgary Flames a team that's lost 4 games, 2 of which were against Ottawa, a team that hasn't scored much. We talked about it last night. They're a team that scored the least number of goals in the North Division. Mm-hmm. You just can't do that. You can't have a negative, look, teams get into the playoffs with negative goal differentials. It happens. Every once in a while, generally, you'll have one team that has, will maybe be a, -5 or something like that, and they can slip in. But the reality is, when you can't score, I think their goal differential is -14 right now.
It is -14.
So when you're in that situation where when you've allowed the second most, or they're tied with Ottawa, so it's them and Ottawa, and then I think it's Vancouver, has given up the most goals in the North at 120. You just can't do it. You're just not a playoff team. And that's just the fact. And again, like I said, if you can't arrest your development, just joking, but if you can't arrest this fall and you can't stop this slide, and you can't show the desperation, I mean, and coaches will often talk about this, like after a long road trip, coming back, playing that first game in your building can sometimes be a little bit difficult, but I'm sorry, guys, you could have been, in theory, 9 points back of Winnipeg, had Winnipeg clutching their sticks a little bit, knowing how important it was to win this game tonight. And instead, you're 11 points back. And the Winnipeg Jets are going to obviously go for a win tonight. But the reality is, you know what I mean? They've already got what they needed, which is that first game, which I think we talked about was so important.
Yeah, and the Flames are going to be much more desperate, you would think, Dave, based on maybe the first period yesterday, that won't happen. But, even if they beat the Jets tonight, which we obviously, don't think they will because the Jets are the better team. But even if they win the game tonight, or even if they win a couple of games here, I still don't think they're making the playoffs. So I don't think anything that happens tonight or on Monday is really going to change the outlook of this team. And, we're going to be joined by Haley Salvian coming up in the third hour of the show. And we'll ask her about the trade deadline, which is coming up in just over a couple of weeks. But you have to think that Brad Treliving is going to move a significant piece. I mean, Johnny Gaudreau is the obvious one. But why aren't you looking at moving some other players? Because I don't know where this team is going. I feel like they lack a bit of an identity. Drew mentioned this last night, and I agree with Drew 100%. I mean, you agree with Drew? I agree with Drew. You're building your team around Matthew Tkachuk. Sean Monahan and Johnny Gaudreau, Mark Giordano, you've built your team around those guys for the last 6 or 7 years, 8 years. But the future of this team is Matthew Tkachuk. It's Juuso Välimäki. It's Noah Hannafin. The core of this team is changing. You haven't gone anywhere with the current core. I mean, Elias Lindholm, I think he's sticking around because, as I mentioned yesterday, he has a good cap hit, right? Kind of similar to Nick Ehlers. It's just a really good cap hit. So, yeah, Dave, I agree with you. This team is a flawed team, and I honestly think they should be embarrassed by the way they played yesterday.
What I want to see tonight, what I'm going to look for at the start of the game tonight. So the Flames, obviously, I mean, if you have to say which team is more desperate entering tonight's game, it's no question that it's the Calgary Flames. Now, whether or not that desperation that's on paper translates to in-game action and in-game success will obviously be determined later on tonight. But to me, the Flames scored their 2 goals by having a strong net front presence, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. And the first 2 periods, Connor Hellebuck, for the most part, could have read a book in front of his, given the lack of traffic in front of his net and given the lack of shots on goal.
Would it be nonfiction, true crime?
I'm not really sure what he's interested in. We'll have to ask him after the game. We'll see what his reading preferences are. But that to me is going to be the sign of what who the Winnipeg Jets are going to get in his opponent tonight. Are they going to get a hard-nosed, desperate team, or are they going to get a team that settles for taking shots from the outside? And if the Calgary Flames, and we'll know this within the first period or so, if the Flames are satisfied to still just throw the puck on net from everywhere without having any purpose behind it, the Winnipeg Jets will say thank you very much. We're glad to play that game, because that's really where the Jets allegedly struggle the most, is in giving up high danger chances. So if the Flames are satisfied in not getting into high danger zones, the Winnipeg Jets will say, okay, that's fine. You can out-Corsi us all you want with your shots from the sidewall that really aren't going to matter. I guess it's Laurent Brossoit in that tonight for the Jets, not Hellebuck. So I mean, you can factor that into my speech here. But if Brossoit is facing shots from the outside, the Jets are going to say, okay, we will kill you in transition again. We'll kill you in the power play again, like we just did last night. And we'll gladly play that game. You're going to make it easier on us. And frankly, that's the sign of a bad team, when they make it easy on their opponent. Because while the Jets, I think, are better than the Flames on paper, they're not that much better than the Flames on paper. On the ice, obviously they are. But, for the most part, if you were to look these teams up and down the lineup on paper, you would say that there should be closer in the standings than the current 11-point lead that the Jets have on the Flames, Dave. Yeah,
and I think tonight, in terms of confidence, I think if the Jets do have that first goal, I think that's going to go a long way to kind of shattering we'll see. I mean, I think the first 5 minutes of this hockey game are going to be of greatest importance for Calgary. I mean, really want to see what they've got, right? You've got a well-rested Laurent Brossoit, who's been playing lights out as the Jets' backup goaltender this season. So you don't have any a lack of faith in him or his ability.
Sure.
But to me, yeah. So to me, the question is, does Calgary get the message? I mean, Sutter definitely threw it down. When he says they had a bunch of dopey players in the first period.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, he's calling out his team, and I get it. Like, this is what happens. Look, you don't fire a coach because he's the team's playing extremely well. Like, sometimes, obviously, teams can have success in spite of their coach. We've seen that, obviously, in the NHL before. But at the same time, oftentimes when a coach gets fired, team isn't a very good team anyways, right? And the GM's looking for some way of trying to, take the heat off himself, perhaps, or whatever it is. Or maybe the message has been tuned out, or maybe your team isn't that good. And we're seeing a Flames team again who don't seem to, I think you used the word, Drew, confidence. They don't look like a team that's playing with a lot of confidence. And they didn't look like a team that was going to come back in last night's game. Right?
They don't look like a team that's playing with any passion.
Well, and that's my whole point. And that's what I'm getting towards, is that this is a team that really, if you want to show that message was received, then you better come out and dominate the Winnipeg Jets when this game starts for the first 5-10 minutes of this game. If you don't, if you come out with kind of a laissez-faire, position, mm-hmm. and if the Jets get up early on them, I mean, I think it was Richard who in the chat said they're going to fold like a cheap tent or table, and it kind of that could very likely happen if the Jets get going early. And we don't know. Obviously, we know the Jets are going with Brossoit. I don't know. Are they? Is it Markstrom again? Or
I would imagine it's going to be Riddick.
Yeah, I would think it's Riddick too, but I don't know if we don't.
Yeah,
have
Dave, I don't think they've announced it formally, but yeah. I agree with Drew. There's a good chance, just based on what we know. I mean, you usually go with the backup goaltender for the second game.
Right. Yeah. And that seems reasonable, but I'm just saying. So you've got a goaltender in Riddick who's not having his best season, and again, we've seen how good, and it's one of the things we talk about. Like sometimes, Drew, I think you asked a question in a scrum about goaltender teams playing a little bit more tight in front of the backup goaltender. And so we'll see, maybe Calgary plays a little tighter, but again, to me, it's a function of the first 5-10 minutes is going to define how this team goes.
Yes. I mean, that I think is very succinct, Dave, and that's what's going to matter in this game the most, because the Jets, the desperation factor is usually comes to a head at some point in time. And Calgary's not desperate to start the game, then the Jets are just going to gladly accept that and continue with their good performance because that's what they've been playing. They've been playing good hockey. They've been able to sort of weather any storms that have been thrown at them. Now, the Flames and the Canucks have not thrown a lot of storms at them over the course of this week. And, so the Jets will be glad to not have to react if that's the case. Let me ask you guys this. Is Milan Lucic a marked man in tonight's game as a result of the hit on Appleton, or did the Jets get their revenge on that when they scored to make it 3-1, which was the eventual game-winning goal?
Well, look, Milan Lucic's play was dirty. We all know that. He could have easily been kicked out of the game for that board on Mason Appleton. And then, he adds a punch to Neil Pionk. And I was telling this to Dave off air after we did the post-game show, like really, you're going to punch Neil Pionk? Like,
what time did you guys stay awake until? Because the post-game show ended about 12:30, and I got the hell out of the room. You guys have a little, chitty chat that goes on afterwards. What time were you guys up until?
Yeah, we have 2, a little
communication.
Yeah, we went to bed at about 4:30 in the morning. I just woke
up.
It's
the wrap-up show.
The wrap-up show.
No, but look at Drew. Lucic is one of the toughest guys in the league, whether you like him or not. He's a tough customer. Like, he's been around. He can drop the gloves. He's a big boy. We all know that. So you're going to go after Neil Pionk? Like, Pionk has a nice physical element to his game. But that's the thing that would irk me if I was the Jets. I have no idea if there's going to be a fight. If there is going to be a fight, it's going to be probably one of Logan Stanley or Adam Lowry that takes him on. That is, if Lucic is in the game. I haven't heard anything about the NHL Department of Player Safety looking at that incident on Appleton. But as far as I'm concerned, that's absolutely worthy of, at the very least, a look. Maybe I think we would have heard 2 or 3 game suspension.
I think we would have heard something by now, simply because they play tonight. So I'd be surprised if all of a sudden, while we're on air here for the next couple of hours, if all of a sudden there was any supplemental discipline coming from the Department of Player Safety. I think we would have heard about it already. Usually they're pretty quick on the draw to at least give the team, in this case the Flames, give them a heads up that they might be without a player tonight. And the fact that they haven't, as far as I know, haven't said anything at 10:22 Eastern time tells me that Lucic will probably escape the wrath of the aptly named Department of Player Safety.
And that's a mistake, in my opinion. But we obviously, don't have to harp on it. But I absolutely think, just look at it. I mean, we watched it live and we watched the replay. It was dirty. It was absolutely, unquestionably a dirty hit. So again, if the NHL Department of Player Safety doesn't think so, then I guess, there's nothing we can do about it. But yeah, we might see, like I said, someone like Logan Stanley, or you would think Adam Lowry as a veteran would want to be the guy to take that fight. But at the end of the day, guys, like, does it even matter? Like, do we even care?
No,
I don't.
Look, the Jets, somebody in the chat said the Jets' best revenge will be a 4-0 victory tonight, rather than, fisticuffs involving Milan Lucic. And that's absolutely true. There was somebody else in the chat, and there's so many great comments coming that it's hard to keep up with them. But, that's what we want. Keep the conversation going while you're here. Smash the like button if you haven't already done so. We need you to do that as well. The Winnipeg Jets, the amount of goal scoring that they're getting, and the goal scoring that they're getting from so many different people is got to be, some of the envy of the league. When you got and now, sure, Andrew Kopp getting 4 goals a game is not going to be something that's realistic and that's going to replicate over the course of the season. But
shout out to Marcella Chartrand.
There you go. Shout out to Marcella Chartrand for being $100,000 richer. And if Marcella's listening, we could use a loan, but that's a separate issue altogether.
It just goes to show you. Do you remember back in the day, Marcella would have been on the radio. People would have tracked her down. That just goes to show you the difference in the sports radio scene now in Winnipeg. Because
what was the name of the guy that won the $1 million?
Oh,
the one. Jeez.
That was the line. Oh,
that was the line one in St. Louis.
I'll go to a little site called illegalcurve.com because I'm fairly certain I have that information.
I'm pretty sure you must have had an exclusive interview with the guy, Dave. That'd be right up your alley.
I don't think I actually did. I know I never spoke to him, but but he was. It's funny. I'm pretty sure if I recall correctly, he was at maybe the skills competition, and I think Sarah may have interviewed him afterwards. And
Christopher Haley.
Christopher Haley, yes. I think he was a pastor. I think he was a pastor, if I recall correctly.
And then
Pastor Haley.
And as Richard is pointing out in the chat, Gail McDonald was the one who Matthew Perreault got 4 goals for, and they got stopped on that breakaway when that would have been.
Shout out to Gail for sure.
Well,
and that was also the best.
Sorry, Gail.
Sorry, Gail.
Yeah, which was a funny.
Gail won
$100,000. And it's interesting because someone asked Andrew Kopp that after the game. They said, "Did you know that you'd won?" And he was saying on the bench that he thought he needed 5 to win them. I guess they didn't realize that there was $100,000 prize. They thought it was only about the 1 million. So
when they make as many millions as they do, what's $100,000? It's
I actually like Kopp's answer. I actually like Kopp's answers a lot. No, it was a solid answer. He said, it's nice to do anyways, but especially in today's environment with people struggling because of the pandemic and the situation caused because of that he was happy to have won someone that kind of money. And the interesting thing about it is now there's only, and it was funny because it hadn't been done in the NHL yet this season. Then Grimaldi did it for Nashville, like 2 nights later. So, or the next night. So, I mean, that was kind of interesting. And then there's only one more prize now, one more $100,000 prize to be won in Canada. Which is,
I mean, you must have done a deep dive into the fine print of the rules and regulations here, Mr. Minuk.
I did. I went back and then the crazy thing was that, did you see the way it's apportioned? Like if you're a participant for the Canucks, you're in BC or the Yukon. If you're a participant for the Flames, you're in Southern Alberta. For the Oilers, it's Northern Alberta. So, that makes sense, right? And then if you're a participant for the Jets, you're in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and all of Atlantic Canada. The only place that isn't represented is Quebec, because Quebec isn't eligible.
Why? It's the Atlantic Canada part that doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, it's also the fact that there's like 90% of the population represented for that. But anyways,
that's true. Anyways, that is an illegal curve digression. If we've ever had one, that's an illegal curve digression right there.
That was a deep dive.
That was certainly a deep dive.
Hey, look, there's a dog across the street.
That dog has a puffy tail. Our buddy Murat Atesh is going to join us here in a couple minutes. So let's pay some bills, give a shout out to some of our advertisers. We'll be right back with more illegal curve hockey and more of Murat Atesh from The Athletic with some Jets talk.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
"We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?"
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs, from restorative to cosmetic dentistry, and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly, see lindenmarketdental.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours, and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
While you can't always count on your team winning, nor your favorite player scoring, one thing you can always count on is Bernstein's Deli. They've expanded their services because the team at Bernstein's Deli wants to accommodate your needs and keep you safe. Open Tuesday to Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to serve you. Head to your phone, in-store or online to shop for groceries or order meals from the restaurant, like the legendary Illegal Curve Sandwich. Just go to bernsteinsdeli.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. There's Ezra Ginsburg. He's drinking coffee. There's Dave Minuk. He doesn't drink coffee. I'm your host, Drew Mindell. This segment of the show brought to you by Dr. Les Reikus and the team at Linden Market Dental Center, official dentist of Illegal Curve Hockey. Don't be an Ezzy. Always wear a mouth guard and give yourself peace of mind protection, as well as facial, teeth, and mouth protection. To make an appointment to get your teeth to ting, visit lindenmarketdentalcenter.com. Our good buddy Murat is going to join us coming up here momentarily, still to come on the program in about 30 minutes time. When Manitoba Moose head coach Pascal Vincent going to join us. The Moose losing 1-0 last night to the Laval Rocket. They're doing battle again tomorrow afternoon at the Iceplex. And of course, there was a dramatic victory on Thursday night for the Manitoba Moose, tying the game at a buzzer beater and then winning in a shootout. We'll talk to...
I got confirmation from the Moose. It was with 0.2 seconds to go in the game.
0.2 seconds, 2/10 of a second to go. Wow. Can't get any closer than that. I guess you can get 1/10 of a second closer, but you'll forgive me for that. But we'll talk to Manitoba Moose head coach Pascal Vincent coming up at the top of the hour about everything going on with the Winnipeg Jets AHL team. You look ahead for the Winnipeg Jets this week. You have the next 2 games against the Flames tonight and then Monday, and then you finally come back home. You got a couple games, that Wednesday game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'll tell you guys to hold that thought for now, though, because we can bring in our good friend from The Athletic. He covers the Winnipeg Jets. He does a great job, as you all know. Our good friend Murat Atesh joins us on the program. Murat, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you this fine Saturday morning?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Drew. How are things?
Hey, things are fine and dandy. Got no complaints whatsoever. A lot of hockey talk as of late, but that's good. Certainly keeps idle hands what's the expression? Idle hands are the enemy or the devil's work or something. So
devil's tool.
The devil's tool. Thank you there. So I don't have to worry about my
idle hands. You should know you're the devil, so I don't.
Thank you. There you go. Just my little sausage fingers, Mr. Ginsburg, working my mouse and working my keyboard. Anyways, Murat, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. I guess let's start with the game last night for the Jets. 3-2 victors. Obviously, all week they defeated the Vancouver Canucks. This seems to be a Winnipeg Jets team that, for the most part, beats the teams they're supposed to beat and is competitive against the teams they're supposed to be competitive against. Is that a sign of a good hockey team? Is that the sign of a better than good hockey team? Like, where would you sort of assess the Winnipeg Jets right now, given what we've seen over the last month, 6 weeks or so?
Well, I think that they're, like most Canadian teams, good but flawed, right? I mean, Winnipeg's forwards, top 9 might be the best in the Canadian division. Certainly an incredibly deep forward group, especially after Pierre-Luc Dubois' addition at 5-on-5. Connor Hellebuck, toe-to-toe with any goaltender in the world. I think you're going to be comfortable with him in net. And I think every Canadian team has had that sort of situation where there's strengths they can lean on. And then for Winnipeg, I think the defense has been the question mark all season. And you lean on Connor Hellebuck because he's Connor Hellebuck, and things tend to work out pretty well for you. But the other Canadian teams seem to have struggled with overcoming their flaws. That is the difference for me, pardon me. Whereas Winnipeg has been able to, like they were saying in the postgame yesterday, Tucker Pullman was adamant about this, that Winnipeg's forwards helped out on defense quite a lot last night. That helped to compensate a little bit for the defensive issues. Connor Hellebuck certainly had another good game. And then I don't think Calgary has figured quite out how to handle their lack of depth up front or deal with the coaching change that they have going. And then throughout the Canadian division, everybody has sort of struggled with what ails them. So I don't think Winnipeg's dominant, but I think they're good. I think they're doing a good job of managing their issues.
Murat, we have to talk about your most recent piece in The Athletic, and I love how you called Huss the local legend in your piece, because you're absolutely right. The king of Corden, even though I think he's living on Wellington Crescent these days, so wherever he goes, he's the king. He's the king of the Rum Hut. He's king of Wellington Crescent wherever he goes. But your argument is, and as you do all the time in your pieces, you really kind of capture what's going on here as we lead up to the trade deadline and what Kevin Cheveldayoff is looking at. And I agree. For those who haven't read the article, you should go read it. But in the article you touch on, like, if you're going to go after a Matthias Ekholm or a defenseman that has term, there's more expansion draft ramifications, as opposed to acquiring a player like David Savard or Alex Goligoski, who obviously, don't have term after this year. So how hard is it to kind of, put yourself in the position of Kevin Cheveldayoff, who obviously wants to improve his decor, but if he picks up a player like Mattias Ekholm, that means that he potentially has to make a move so that Seattle doesn't select Dylan DeMello or expose Dylan DeMello and possibly lose him. And then you bring in Logan Stanley. And, Murat, I know I've listened to both your appearances on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, but I agree with you 100% that if we would have been talking about this, even 3 or 4 months ago, that, Logan Stanley was a player that the Jets didn't want to lose in the expansion draft, most people would say that we're nuts. But how big of a factor do you think this expansion draft is going to be on what Chevy does or doesn't do before the trade deadline?
Well, it's definitely going to have an impact. Actually, I can't say anything without complimenting the beard. Ezra, we haven't been in the same room for ages since, pre-pandemic times. And this is just a treat to see across from the safe distance of my screen. Actually.
You could just call me Santa Claus.
Well, all right, Santa. So the expansion draft and the trade deadline, to your point, I mean, you add a Mattias Ekholm or any player with term, and you're almost looking at a situation where you pay once to get the player, whatever assets that is, called a first and a top prospect. Could that be Dylan Samberg? I mean, that's a big enough price already as it is. And then you get to that expansion draft, and Winnipeg's going to want to protect Neil Pionk. You expect they're going to want to protect Josh Morrissey, despite what Twitter can say sometimes. I'm not sure if you've seen that sort of hubbub as well. Mm-hmm. And then you'd expect that they wanted to protect Dylan DeMello after signing him and the impact that he's had. So then what? You have to add another asset to give to Seattle just to protect Dylan DeMello, and you still have Logan Stanley. So that's an issue for sure. If Kevin Cheveldayoff adds a player with term, there will be another little bit of work to do and maybe an asset going out. So it just raises the price. If it's Ekholm, it may be worth it, but that's something to keep in mind. The other issue, of course, is Logan Stanley coming from an AHL, I'm going to call it a top 4 role. I know you guys are all over the Moose, but I don't think he was the AHL's defenseman of the year last season. He was capable. And then to emerge, and from day one of, I'm not going to call it day one of Jets camp actually, but I have 2 pieces from Jets training camp where I'm like, guys, look at Logan Stanley. He's moving the puck cleanly and effectively. He was my standout in 2 different days, and that made it into the piece. And you're sort of wondering, where is this coming from? And more importantly, where is it going? At his age, his size, his projection, the fact that Winnipeg traded up to get him, has waited patiently for his development. You've heard Pascal Vincent say good things about him and the role that they wanted to give him with the Moose heading into last season. Paul Maurice has been mentioning him in Jets training camp for a little while. This is a guy that many people within the Jets organization are invested in. So now, with a little bit of thought there, even without a trade deadline acquisition, there's suddenly a debate. Do you look at protecting Logan Stanley? Do you look at protecting Dylan DeMello? You have the potential and the size and the idea that if he becomes what you hope he will, there'll be nobody like him. And then you have Dylan DeMello, who I think is a bit of a divisive player. I think he has a massive impact. I love those 5-foot passes. I think he breaks out cleanly. Last night he got picked off by Andrew Mangiapane, so that would go against my point. But the whole of it, his impact has been great. And then that's where it all goes. So I don't know if you want even more monologue. I could talk about the expansion draft for days, but this is how I see it so far.
You're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. Our guest from The Athletic, he does a great job covering the Winnipeg Jets. His name is Murat Atesh.
Murat, it's one of those situations now that we know that the Canadian government is likely, or I think they did agree to change that deadline now. We talked about it this week, but it went from 14 to 7 days. Do you think that has a huge impact? Because we saw what happened with Pierre-Luc Dubois and the long layoff, and obviously he got injured subsequently after starting to play for the Winnipeg Jets, and so it really costs him a lot of time. Now you're going to reduce that by 7 days, which could be quite significant. Do you see that changing the way Kevin Cheveldayoff plays this trade deadline? Obviously, we've talked to a lot of the TSN guys. They seem to think it's not going to necessarily be a trade deadline day, but kind of a lead up. But do you think that this will amend the way Kevin Cheveldayoff chooses to do business?
Well, I think the idea that there's a quarantine at all supports that theory that you just shared, the TSN folks you've had on. I think that teams looking to add are going to want to do it early, whenever they can, as soon as they can, integrate the player. From Winnipeg's perspective as well, because they're in an LTIR situation, that relief pool that they have via Brian Little, it doesn't get bigger by the day like traditional cap space does.
Right.
So there used to be that advantage to wait all the way till deadline day. You'd have just ever so slightly more cap space by waiting. I don't think that exists anymore. I don't think the 1 week, 2 week thing is a sea change, because if Kevin Cheveldayoff was looking for a player with term, I think he would have wanted to get that player in as soon as possible anyway. Unrestricted free agent. I think in both cases, you're looking at really trying to expedite things, find that match. And it's more any time that we see or the patience that we need to have for a deal will be about finagling the trade and letting teams sort of look for prices as opposed to expansion draft or pandemic related concerns.
So continuing on about the trade deadline, Murat, we know the names that have been bandied about. Matthias Ekholm, obviously that's the biggest fish in the sea that's going to cost you the most. David Savard from Columbus, but Columbus is playing better hockey as of late. You mentioned, there was talk yesterday on the broadcast about maybe a guy like Jamie Alexiak from Dallas. You've mentioned Alex Goligoski from the Arizona Coyotes. From your perspective, who's the best fit for the Winnipeg Jets? Let's sort of keeping in mind, of course, what the acquisition cost is going to be. Who would you target if Kevin Cheveldayoff phones you up right now and says, Murat, I need your opinion. Who's your target for the Winnipeg Jets?
Well, I do think that this is such a cop-out, guys. Drew, I don't want to be that guy that cops out. The easy answer is price determined, right? It is absolutely price determined. My expectation is Ekholm's price gets into top prospect territory or meaningful futures. And I'm not sure that I'm not 100% all in on that concept, depending on what that is. I think on the ice, a player like David Savard, a big, strong crease clearer, you don't have to worry about extra term on his contract. So the expansion draft is no longer a concern unless you're absolutely enamored with the player and can sign him. I think that's a real area where Winnipeg likes to have, a puck mover and a bigger guy with a bit of crease clearing grit on each of its pairings. You've seen a lot of balance from them, I think, in that regard this year. I also think against Calgary last summer, there was a sense that Calgary's bigger players were able to push Winnipeg around in the corners and in the slot. So playoff hockey may also dictate a bigger acquisition. And Savard is those things and good at it, right? Like he's not only big and strong, but he has a really great impact in terms of clearing that area of the ice. He doesn't get beat on cycle plays. He doesn't get beat on those overlapping plays. He just gets the job done. And then the last name, without the lengthy case for it, because I wrote that up at The Athletic this morning, just the dark horse option with some connections to the Jets that I think are meaningful would be Alex Goligoski, who's been playing on the top pair on the right side in Arizona this year. No more huge power play minutes, huge even strength minutes, and I think he's been solid.
And I think I agree with you on both those defensemen, Murat, and obviously the salary cap wouldn't be an issue there with the remaining salary cap and the space the Jets have. So I think both Savard and Goligoski would be great options, if the Jets don't go the Matthias Ekholm route or another defenseman. I wanted to ask you, another expansion draft question, but I guess we'll move on from that. But, I wanted to actually ask you about the Flames, because you just touched on the Flames, and, it seems like, we focus on one Canadian team for obvious reasons, because usually, the Jets are playing that team for at least a couple of games, sometimes, as many as 4 games. But, I look at that Flames team and there are players that I like. You mentioned Mangiapane. I really like him. Actually, the Jets took Appleton just a couple of spots after Mangiapane. I remember, I was hoping the Jets might grab him because he was a 100-point player for Barrie. But if you're Brad Treliving, and obviously Johnny Gaudreau is the big one there that people are looking at, right? They're looking at Gaudreau and they're saying, okay, well, are the Flames going to move him to maybe an East Coast team? But if you're Treliving, aren't you looking at basically trading almost every player on your team aside from maybe, Matthew Tkachuk, Noah Hanifin, like a few others? Like, I look at this Flames team, and this has been a very disappointing season. And you have to start, using that word rebuild there.
That's a strange concept to me, because I think that those players are still within ages that should be able to, like, I think they're still close to their prime in a lot of cases. And at the end of the day, you see the results they've had under multiple different coaches. And maybe Matthew Tkachuk is the real untouchable that I can see for sure. I was talking to Haley Salvian, and I won't and I know you have her coming on right away. We were talking about
Let's just keep you on. We'll keep you on for a full hour.
Yeah. Let's build that friendship that way. So I don't know what's going on, or how to explain the lack of star impact from a lot of those star players in these recent 2 seasons, and how to get out of that, because I think you really have to do a good job of identifying who's underperforming, but the context might be able to change and you might be able to get their games back, and who's underperforming and simply not worth it to the Calgary Flames, depending on where they feel their window is at. And then I also wonder about Treliving, and this is without knowledge. I mean, Calgary's not a team I obsess over. He's gone through a lot of coaches at this stage. And I mean, I think that you're probably looking at a situation where you want to get results quickly. And I wonder about what his long-term vision for that club is.
You know, Murat, one thing we talked about the beginning of the season was the idea of a taxi squad, and how it would be a really good resource for teams, because you wouldn't really need, especially for teams that have some veteran players, you'd be able to get some fresh legs into the lineup. So we were kind of under this impression. And when the Jets early on in the season had good spacing, there wasn't really a need for it, and they were able to practice. And now they've gone into a stretch where they're really not practicing much. And Paul Maurice has really stressed that idea of giving the players time to rest and recover, not necessarily get on the ice, get some vitamin D, as he calls it, get them in the sunlight, let them just relax and get away from the rink. But are you a little surprised? Are you a little surprised that guys like Jansen Harkins, who appears to be healthy and ready to go, Ville Heinola, who we know was obviously with the Manitoba Moose, brought on the trip for insurance purposes, are you a little surprised that these guys aren't kind of getting into, not necessarily Heinola in terms of that needing to get in for a guy who needs to be rested, but maybe a Jansen Harkins, not using that taxi squad in the manner in which we thought it would be. But Paul Maurice is clearly on record saying, I'm not getting a guy into the lineup just for fresh legs.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, because to me, I think you're framing it as a good idea. I would be with that. And I think that this concept of load management that has been made big in the NBA hasn't really necessarily made it to the NHL at this stage. And I think I'm not a sports scientist in terms of the physiology that you need, right? I can't really speak to this. I just think it's one of those situations where culture and results might go a little counter to each other, because in the NHL, how are you going to convince that veteran who's willing to block 100-mile-an-hour slap shot that, hey, you need a break just for a break's purposes today? Or how are you going to convince Blake Wheeler, who has played, who's missed 8 games ever, and I think one of those might have been due to a trade and one might have been right before a playoff run. How are you going to say, okay, just have a seat today because we played 3 and 5 or something like that? And I don't think that the NHL's at that spot where they're there. And then you look at Winnipeg continues to win. I think Jansen Harkins would be a great addition to that fourth line. I really think that he's at the level of a professional and National Hockey League player. And I would have him, without having seen much of him this year, but I would have him ahead of Nate Thompson, for example, as a fourth line center. But the Jets keep winning. That fourth line has looked good. And, you've got the culture of we're not going to break that up. And Paul Maurice certainly loves that veteran savvy there. So I would have hoped for more of it. Not sure about expected. And I think that culture and human reasons are probably why we don't see more of it.
Last question for you, Murat. Murat Atesh, our guest from The Athletic, does a great job covering the Jets there. We encourage everyone to read his work. And if you aren't already subscribing, be sure and do that so that we keep Murat gainfully employed, certainly, and keep The Athletic growing upwards. This is a bit of a sneak preview of what we're going to discuss later on in the show. Andrew Kopp is a year away from unrestricted free agency status. Adam Lowry is a UFA at season's end. If the Winnipeg Jets can only keep one of the two on a long-term deal, which one of the two would you keep?
Oh, wow. Coming with the heat just to end it here. I think that this is an interesting debate, because for me, Andrew Kopp's the more impactful player in more seasons. I think that his defensive impact is similar to Adam Lowry's, and traditionally Cop brings a little bit more offense, maybe not 4 goals a night offense as a general rule, but I think that if you're looking for a guy that can hang in the top 6 every now and again, but also have that checking impact, it's Cop. At the same time, Adam Lowry is just so entrenched in the culture of that hockey team. I mean, we've all had conversations with Paul Maurice about how well respected and loved Adam Lowry is, and not to say Cop isn't, but I can remember talking to equipment managers about how respected Adam Lowry is, other staff, media who deal with him, training staff as well, athletic therapists. And from tip to toe of the organization, there's the sense that Adam Lowry is just class and captain material, and that sort of player that you keep for culture, in addition to the fact that, I mean, he's had a heck of a season as well. Who do you keep? I got to give you one.
No fence sitting here. You got to put you on the record.
Tell you what, if the price is the same, I keep Lowry because there's just nobody like him on the Winnipeg Jets roster.
Well, that's, you know what?
Definitive.
Yes.
By the way, Murad, I would have for sure sat on that fence. I would have been sitting on that fence for, I don't know, at least a couple of hours.
Yeah,
I wanted to, but I got to give the content, right? This is you invite me here. I have the pleasure of being on your show. I may as well throw something there for you.
Well, first off, the pleasure's ours, and I have to get this in before we let you go. I love that you have changed the perspective in your home for a legal curve, because if you watch Murad on the Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, he was in a different position in his home, and he had the guitar in the background. So I like how you're switching it up for us.
People were asking about the guitar though. They kind of wanted you to play something before, maybe as part of your answer, you'd be playing guitar and answering the question.
Yeah, a little bit of a demo necessary. I don't know. I think that I'm hiding it from you right now just to reflect that, I get a little rusty in my old age.
Look, if there's a coffee house with Murad Atesh coming up, I would tune in for that. Maybe you can apply for some stay-at-home funding from the province or something, and croon a couple of segments for us.
Beautiful. I do not commit to this.
But you committed to Adam Lowry, so you did well on that. Murad Atesh covers the Winnipeg Jets for theathletic.com. He's a good friend of the show. Murad, thank you. We'll let you get on with your Saturday morning. And again, 12 hours or a little less than 12 hours until puck drop again. So we'll be right back at it later this evening. Enjoy tonight's contest.
Thank you as well. Thanks, guys.
There he goes, Murad Atesh from The Athletic, joining us on the program.
Murad's the man.
Yeah, great guy, Murad. Still to come on the show, of course, as I mentioned, in about 10 minutes' time, we're going to be joined by Manitoba Moose head coach Pascal Vincent. And then in the third hour of today's show, we're going to be joined by Haley Salvian from The Athletic to discuss the Calgary Flames. This segment of the program brought to you by our good friends Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty, official realtors of Illegal Curve Hockey. When 95% of your clients come via referral, it shows your commitment to honesty, integrity, and a total dedication to client satisfaction. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, come shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia online at zappiagroup.com. Gentlemen, let me ask you guys this. We now know it is official. Joshua Clipperton of the Canadian Press tweeted it last night. The quarantine for any players being acquired is down from 14 days to 7 days. How important do you think that is for the Winnipeg Jets, and how do you think that will affect at all, if at all, the approach that Kevin Cheveldayoff takes to the trade deadline?
Yeah, there's no doubt that it's going to have an impact, guys, right? Because we expect the Jets to trade with an American team. I mean, there always is the chance, that the Jets could trade with, I don't know, maybe the Ottawa Senators or the Vancouver Canucks. But I don't know, why would the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Edmonton Oilers or the Montreal Canadiens want to make a move with the Jets when they're battling with them, right, guys? So I think you would agree that most likely it's going to be an American team. So that means that maybe Chevy doesn't have to pull the trigger as early, right? And, we know that, just look, and I realize we always look at things from a Jets perspective, but, we are a Jets-based show. But I don't think it's just Chevy, right? I think, for Kyle Dubas, for Mark Bergevin, for Kenny Holland, I think it probably just means, like I said, that maybe if they were going to make a move, in the next, 5 to 7 days, maybe they hold off and they wait, leading up to the trade deadline on April 12th. So obviously that's good news for Canadian general managers. But like I said, Dave, I mean, this doesn't change anything. We know that Chevy has been working those phones. As he likes to say, he's always having conversations, right? And we know that he's trying to pick up a defenseman, right? So, yeah, that helps him. That just gives him, the way I look at it, boys, just gives him more time.
Yeah, I agree, Ezzy. And I think it's a function of, you also have to be a little cognizant of price. I mean, right now, price seems very high. I mean, I'm seeing yesterday, The Athletic did an article. It was like 9 perfect trades. It was like, and I thought to myself, who are these executives that are suggesting these trades? Because they were terrible for the Jets. They really were. Like, they were trades.
The one to Carolina was interesting, Dave, and we'll talk about that.
It was. I guess that what I'm saying is, it's almost as if you didn't watch the Jets to know the way the Jets rely on this team to make those suggestions. That's probably the way I should have framed it, because again, like I said, the reality is the Jets just wouldn't make those moves. It's just not part. But I also took umbrage with the idea that
let me read what the trades were, for in case anybody missed it. So this came out yesterday in The Athletic. Team executives were proposing these trades, anonymous team executives. So
what is a team executive in the first place? They're obviously not GMs, because you would have called them GMs. So
no, I think these are probably GMs.
It's someone who's an executive with the team, Dave.
Thank you, Ezzy.
Ask a stupid question, Dave. Got a stupid answer.
I don't think it's a stupid question, because I think it's important. I think if it's a GM, say it's a GM. I don't think they're GMs, to be honest with you. And it's
a good point, though, that Dave makes. Like, is the Carolina executive making that proposal on behalf of Carolina? Like, I agree. Some of these trades are pretty stupid.
Let's hold that thought. We're going to bring in the head coach of the Manitoba Moose now. Pascal Vincent joins us on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Pascal, good morning. Nice to see you. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. How are you guys?
We are doing great. It's nice to see you.
Normally, I don't really see you. I see a fireplace in the background. That's nice.
I got to keep it warm here, Pascal. You know that.
Very nice. Very nice.
You know how Dave likes to bring the heat with his post-game questions to you. So he's literally got the heat to bring to you now, right behind you.
That's nice. That's nice. I don't have the same background, that's for sure.
That's probably for the better, let's be honest. Pascal, obviously a unique situation for your team, this last 3 weeks or so, having that big long break. You come back in action on Thursday, you dramatically win that game after tying it up, getting 2 late goals in the third period to then send it into overtime where you win in the shootout. You lose 1-0 last night in a very tight checking game. The only goal scored, I think, 2.5 minutes into the first period. I guess, coming off that lengthy break, that huge amount of time off, how did you like your team's response to that lengthy break?
I like them very much. And we had the long break was we split that up in 2 blocks. The first week was working on skills, and we had a 3-on-3 tournament to bring to work on some kind of a competition. And we had a draft, so the guys had to pick their own players, and it was pretty much a full day exercise, and the guys had a lot of fun. And then the winners had to they won a toque, and the losers had to the team that finished 4th, they had to vacuum the dressing room. And so it was they were all on board, but we split that 2 weeks in 2 blocks, and that was the first week. And the second week was all about routes and systems and pace and making sure we were going back to work. And the response was really good. I thought the first game and first period execution was just all right. Second period, not so much, like I said previously, or what I said after the game. And then the third period, I started to feel our team, and we had lots of good chances. And yesterday, I mean, one mistake. We made that one mistake. It's a 2-on-1. They make a perfect play, perfect pass, and they scored that goal. But other than that, shots were 19-19. Our chances in the third period were 7-1 for us. We had our chances to come back in the game and win the game. But two teams that are well structured, and then it felt like a playoff game. Not much space in the neutral zone, not much space in the offensive zone, lots of shots being blocked, physical, good forechecks on both sides, at times good goaltending, but it was I have to say I'm really satisfied with the effort and the way the game was managed. Our guys stayed in the game, and we're playing against a pretty good team. The Laval team is their lineup. When you look at the history of their players for this year, anyway, that's a very good team. So I'm very pleased with how our guys played the first 2 games against Laval.
Pascal, we have a lot of players that we want to ask you about. We're obviously not going to get to all of them, but Cole Perfetti is a player that a lot of Jets and Moose fans are very excited about. We obviously think that he's going to have a very long career with the Jets organization. And as you know, it's been a very up and down year for Perfetti in terms of just where he's played and the quarantining, the World Juniors, this 12-day break that we talked about, and you're getting a front row seat to watch his development this year for the Moose. How do you think he's handled this, just the big gaps in games and everything like that, and how have you seen his game grow, even though it's a very short period of time? This is new, this is his first pro season. So how would you assess his first couple of months as a pro hockey player?
Yeah, he's when he first got here, the first impression you have on the person is, the size of the person, first of all, and he's not very big. And he's a young player. He's 18. He's playing as an 18 years old player. So you wonder, is he going to be able to sustain the pace and the physicality of this level? And we read the reports and watched a few of his games in the past, watched him at the World Juniors, and you can tell he's a smart player. So you wonder how quick he's going to adapt and what kind of impact he's going to have at this level. And because of his smarts and because of his ability to adjust, even though he's not the biggest guy, he's been doing really well. Our power play is in the top 5 of the league, and he's part of it. And 5-on-5, he's not. If you evaluate him on the forecheck and crushing players, you're going to be really disappointed. But on the forecheck, getting the puck back and winning the one-on-one battles, but in a different way. So we want the same results from our players. When you play a one-on-one, we want the puck back. If you're Adam Laurie, we're probably expecting a big body check and we get that puck back. But a guy like Cole, it's different. It's a different approach. It's a different way to do it. And he's really strong on the stick, and he's really quick with his hands to get that puck back. And he's winning battles that I didn't expect he would win early in his career. And so that's a real good sign. So he's finding solutions to problems on the ice, but he's solving those solutions in his own ways, using his own skills. His reads, his vision are really good. He's really smart. When you talk to him about something that maybe a route that he didn't necessarily made the right call on that play, he will listen. And the next time he's going on the ice, he's going to make the adjustment right away. So he's been, and the other thing I was wondering too, because he's such a young player, and being a young player is they all develop at the different, physically they develop at a different pace. And some guys at 19 years old, they look like they're 30 years old. And some guys at 18 years old, they look like they're 16. Cole would be more on that in that category. But his ability to adjust and to sustain the pace and finishing the practices with the same pace that when he started the practice and playing the games at the level that we need to play in order to compete, he's not slowing down. So he's not a big guy. He's going to get bigger. He's going to get stronger. But he finds ways to compete, and he finds ways to win his battles, running his routes. He's a big piece of our power play, and I don't mind. I match him against top lines at times, and then the top line in the American League is a bunch of guys that have played or will play in the NHL soon against top pairings of defensemen, and he's doing a real good job. So I'm very impressed with him so far because his ability to adapt has been amazingly good.
Saturday morning, you're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media feeds. Our guest is Manitoba Moose head coach Pascal Vincent.
Okay, well, Coach, one of the things you would like to talk about is development, and you always talk about the Moose are a development organization to get those players to the next level. And I know you're not going to take credit for the player I'm about to ask you about, but I'm going to ask you about him anyways, because we live in such an instant gratification society. And if a player isn't playing in the NHL after, a few games in the AHL, then they're labeled a bust quite often. And Logan Stanley took a jump that even I, who watched him quite a bit last season with the Moose, didn't expect him to be able to make quite so seamlessly. But how much pride are you taking in seeing what Logan Stanley has been doing and has become such a staple now of this Winnipeg Jets roster?
I don't know if it's pride, Dave, or just a lot of being lots of satisfaction. In you look at a guy who comes here and you understand the kind of pressure he's under. He's a first-round pick. He's a big man. People expect the Amazon result right away. I order it, and then 24 hours later, I get it. But it's that they all develop at a different pace, and for Logan to get used to his body, he's such a big man, and the pace, and finding a way to be productive at the pro level, the calendars, the adversity that you face in our league, and to learn from those years, and then to eventually make that step. Our goal is to push players to the NHL and not seeing them back. We want to push them up, and we hope that we won't see them again. And for Logan, the pressure of, is he going to make it? Is he not going to make it? He just kept growing at his own pace. And this summer that we had, he did something different. His training was different. He became the transition was, the best way to explain it was, he went from being a young big man to a man and a pro. And this summer, when he came back after the summer of training, he came back to the Jets, to the training camp, and he was a man. You could see it on the ice. His skating was faster. His battles were stronger. I remember a play in practice with the Jets. He went in the corner with Adam Lowry, two big bodies, and he won that battle. And that was one of the trigger that made me think, okay, he's made a step now. So, and it's all about building confidence too. We know he's got good hands, and people didn't realize how good of his hands were. But he can make short plays. He can make that pass on the puck. He can have some deception with the puck. He's got a real good shot. He's going to score at some point. I think he hit the post last night. So he's going to score at some point, but it's not going to define his game. His game is defending, making a first pass, no time, no space in the neutral zone. And he's been working on this over time on the ice. And this summer there was a step. So you train and you train and you train in the summer, and at some point there's a point where you see the results of all of those years of training. And this summer, I think he became the man that people were expecting of him, or he was expecting from himself, and that built confidence. He came to the camp, and I could see in his eyes, and when I spoke to him, his plan was not to come back with the Moose. It was to force somebody out of his job, or beat somebody out of a job and stay with the Jets. And he's been doing really well so far. So at times we need to be patient. It's not about today or tomorrow. It's about maybe in a year and 2 years, and let them grow at their own pace and push them. And that's what Logan did. So I'm very happy for him, because I know him quite a bit. He's a good man. He's worked hard, and I'm really happy for him.
Speaking of letting players grow at their own pace, Pascal, everybody that's a fan of the Winnipeg Jets and the Manitoba Moose are interested in the development of Ville Heinola and Dylan Samberg. I want to ask you about Samberg. He's obviously not lighting it up on the score sheet for your team, nor would you expect him to be, but he's been in the lineup each and every game you guys have played this season. From your perspective, I guess, what is the biggest surprise about Samberg that you didn't know until you've started to coach him?
He competes hard, really hard. I didn't know. Like we've been told he will, but I don't know. So there's different levels of compete. He competes really hard, and he's a real good. he wants to learn. And to me, that's a skill. Like you can talk about skills and stick handling and skating and shooting, but there's also the mental skills, and there's different part of it. And the mental skill of wanting to learn and being coachable is a big one to me. And he wants to be coached. He wants to learn, and he competes hard. He can skate. He's got a big body. We talk about the gap in the neutral zone. We want to be a tight gap team. We don't want to give time and space to the other team, and he's trying to do it. At times he gets beat, but he's going to find a way eventually to find a balance. I think his main asset, he's competing really hard. And for a guy that, he has a good shot. He can make a good first pass. But for a guy like him and that competes at that level, and the other thing that is very interesting is it's a physical game, and sometimes for defensemen, just having to pivot and go getting that first touch when there's a dump in your corner, and you have to go make that next play under pressure, under one guy for checking or two guys for checking, and you're going to get hit. Some guys find a way maybe not to win that race, but he's trying, and he's willing to take hits to make the next play, and that's a huge asset. He's not slowing down. He's not turning on the wrong side on purpose. He's going right there in the battle, and he knows he's going to get hit, and he's making the next play. So these are real good attributes for a defenseman. On top of him being a good person and working hard, he's a big man. So the difference there, I know he's older than Cole, but he's a big body at a very young age. And he keeps working on it. He's a strong man. So we test the players, and his results are phenomenal. He's very strong. His lower body, his legs are really strong. So the guy can skate, and he can sustain. His cardio is extremely good, so he can log minutes. So there's a lot of good things to like about Dylan.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about Nathan Todd, and I've asked Dave about Nathan Todd so many times because I know he played a little bit for your club last year, but he's had a really interesting, pro career trajectory because he actually, after his first couple of years or first year playing in the ECHL, he actually played for Carleton University. He's leading your team in points, and I realize oftentimes we focus, on the Cole Perfettis and the Ville Heinolas, but on the other side of that, this is the most games I believe he's ever played in the American Hockey League to date. So just how nice has it been to see his offensive game, take the next step?
Yeah, well, he played in Carleton. You're right. And our assistant here, Marty Johnston, was the coach there. So we had some history on him. We had some knowledge on the guy. And when we had a chance, and our pro scouts and our people knew about him, but then when it's supported by a coach who had him and he knew the person, it makes things a little bit easier. So we gave him a chance last year. He was a call up from the East Coast, got sent down. We play our prospects and we play the guys that we draft first and foremost. So he had some kind of a chance. We didn't mind him. He can play center. That's where he's played his whole career pretty much. Not much room there. So we tried him on the wing, but the fit wasn't right, and the timing very often is a key part of it. Went down, got called up by Belleville, played in Belleville a little bit, was sent back down. We called him back up. So last year he was traveling quite a bit, but he stayed positive, and he's a very mature man, a real good teammate, and we know he could shoot the puck. He's got great offensive instinct. And then coming back here this year, when we spoke to him this summer, he was really interested and physically took a step. So he trained hard, really hard in the summer. And we could see it from day one at camp. He had a step. He was one of our best player on the ice from day one. And combined with his work ethic and his ability to create offense, some guys are just sometimes they just need somebody to open the door to them. And because we knew about the person and the player, we just opened the door, and he's taking full advantage of the opportunity. And we've done the same thing with other people as well. They just didn't take advantage of those opportunities. But Nathan is doing a real good job, and he's being pretty consistent. And same thing with a guy like Jeff Malott. We didn't know about him, but he's doing a real good job. Right now, I can't take him out of the lineup. He's doing everything that he can to stay in the lineup, and he's been producing. So it's good to see at times. It's not, we want to develop our prospects, but sometimes there's a free agent there. We open the door, and if they develop in the right way, you never know what's going to happen next.
Well, Coach, you talk about young players developing, and you talk about, I think you said 19-year-old looking like 30-year-olds. David Gustafson's now 20, but he does look like a 30-year-old. That guy looks like a man. There's no question about it. Him on the ice. And to me, his development, we saw him over in Sweden, came over here, and he and Christian Vesalainen, you've gone back to that line of Christian Vesalainen, Christian Reichel, and David Gustafson, which worked so well for you last season, the final 10 games. But what are you seeing development-wise from David Gustafson and Christian Vesalainen? Because those guys seem to have a real good chemistry. I know Vesalainen can speak a little Swedish, so they have that ability on the ice. But what are you seeing from those two specifically in terms of their development this season?
Well, yeah, Gus looked like a man last year. Like he's a very strong young man. Part of it is genetic. He's a big man, but he's worked hard in the gym and on the ice. Gus is a guy you don't need to speak too much to him. He knows what needs to be done. He's extremely mature. And talking about skill, his mental skills are off the chart. His hockey sense. I understand why he stayed with the Jets last year. Part of a hockey player, part of his job is to earn the trust of the coaches and being able to, show with your actions that you can be sent back on the ice at key moments. And his routes, his stick, his one-on-one battles were really good. Now we just want to build on top of that and giving him a chance to make some plays with the puck, because he can make plays. We just don't want him to be in a box. He's a good defensive player, and that's it. You just defend, and nothing more. We want to develop all of his skills, and that's what we're working on right now, and he's doing a real good job. You can see him carrying the puck through the neutral zone, winning one-on-ones, his cutbacks. I think for Gus, his agility that's something we need to improve, like the short game, changing directions, because once he gets the puck in the offensive zone, he can protect the puck, but now we're looking for separation. How can you separate yourself from the defender? So these are the things: the quickness of his feet and building the confidence of his game with the puck, and he's trending in the right direction. He scored a big goal for us in the overtime 2 games ago. He was on the ice, so we're giving him the opportunities to get better there. It's also a guy that we want him to be really strong on the face-off dot, so we're trying to give him as many face-offs as possible in the games and at key times too. So his mind is at the right place when he gets called up. But he's going to play. He's a real solid player. He's a two-way kind of player. Right now, we know his defensive game is very solid. No issues there. He could play with the Jets tomorrow, and I wouldn't have any worries about him running his routes. But we want him also to be able to make plays offensively and to contribute at times. So we're working on that. I have no issues. I think he's going to be a very good player for a very long time. And there's also a part of his mindset, his being a good player, and he's a real good leader. Yesterday he got hit pretty hard, and I could tell he was not right, and we have a TV timeout, and he goes on the ice and he's testing it out, and he's in a little bit of pain, but he's not complaining. And I had to go see him and ask him, "Hey Gus, are you all right?" He said, "Yeah, I'm good, coach." We know it's a physical game, and at times you're gonna feel it. So, but he's a real tough on his body. So lots of good things about Gus. He's gonna be a good player. For Ves, we need him to touch the puck, and he hasn't played a whole lot this year. He came back with us, and he couldn't play just had a minor injury, but still he's a little bit behind right now, and not of his fault, nobody's fault. But now it's getting back to where he was last year and at training camp. I thought Vest was really good at training camp. He was moving, he was faster, he was quicker, and then he took a step back just because of that small minor injury. Now we're working to get his pace back. Again, lots to like. There's an improvement, and we want to keep it positive. So for both of them, I think they're going in the right direction.
Pascal Vincent is the Manitoba Moose head coach. Pascal, thank you so much for your time this morning. We always enjoy having you on the program, and keep up the good work with the Moose. Back in action tomorrow afternoon to face the Laval Rocket again. I believe 2:00 puck drop, and hopefully you'll get back more into a routine of things with the Moose now and not have any more of those 12-day breaks in the middle of the season.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Always a pleasure.
Thanks so much, Coach.
Ours, Pascal. Thank you. There he goes, Pascal Vincent, head coach of the Manitoba Moose. So articulate, so
you want to know about player
fantastic.
development? That's the guy to go to.
Exactly right. I want to talk more about Pascal and what he said and what he commented on here on the program. Let's take a quick break. We'll play some ads. We'll come back. We'll talk about Pascal, talk about the trade deadline, talk about that Lowry versus Kopp question that I asked Murat earlier. Lots more to come. Haley Salvian to talk about the Flames at the top of the next hour. It's a busy Saturday morning. You're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on YouTube and all our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends or book office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whitened my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
"We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?"
"I sure do."
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs, from restorative to cosmetic dentistry, and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
While you can't always count on your team winning, nor your favorite player scoring, one thing you can always count on is Bernstein's Deli. They've expanded their services because the team at Bernstein's Deli wants to accommodate your needs and keep you safe. Open Tuesday to Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to serve you. Head to your phone, in-store or online to shop for groceries or order meals from the restaurant, like the legendary Illegal Curve sandwich. Just go to bernsteinsdeli.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Saturday morning, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. God forbid Ezra and Dave ever return on time for after a commercial break. You guys, they're not that long. You can time it out pretty well. I'll buy you a stopwatch for your birthday, so you know when you got to be back on screen.
Ezra and I were having a chit chat. We were looking at the pictures in my fridge.
Yeah, and it's crazy that I had time to actually run to Dave's house in River Heights and get back to my house in time.
I read I don't know if you guys have ever read this. It's the oral history of ESPN, and in part of one of the chapters in the book, Erin Andrews, the broadcaster, she used to be with ESPN. She talked about how she would talk to these coaches, certain coaches, football coaches, basketball coaches, and the way that they provide inspiration and the way they provide motivation. She felt like when she was done talking with them, she could run through a wall. I get that same impression from Pascal Vincent. I mean, and this isn't the first time we've had him on.
I thought you were about to say Dave and I. Oh, yeah, but sure, Pascal as well, for sure.
No. Yeah, the inspiration I get from you guys is running through a wall to get away from you. I was talking about running through a wall to do what Pascal wants. And I mean, he is just he's so articulate and he's so well spoken. I mean, I can't even sort of begin to wrap my brain around what it must be like to get coached by him on a regular basis, because, you just feel like, you're vibrating after you talk to him, and the positivity and the upbeat attitude and the motivation that he must provide for so many of those young players with the Manitoba Moose.
Yeah, no, Dave can speak to this more than I can. He's a fantastic hockey coach and a fantastic person. Obviously, we've got to know him a little bit personally over the years. Dave more so, because obviously Dave, goes to most of the Moose games. But not only that, look at the players in the Winnipeg Jets that you can say, like, Pascal Vincent has had an impact on getting those guys to the next level, right? Like, whether it's a Mason Appleton, whether it's a Jansen Harkins, whether it's a Logan Stanley. Obviously, Kyle Connor maybe didn't play as much in the American Hockey League, but just there are so many players that Pascal Vincent has helped coach, and what came across, and you're right, Drew. Like, we're lucky to we've had Pascal on the show many times, going back to the TSN 1290 days, and we're lucky to have him on and ask him, because who better to ask about Cole Perfetti or Dylan Sandberg or Christian Vesalainen than Pascal Vincent? Like, he knows. Like, it's not just us putzes talking about these guys, on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Like, Pascal Vincent is the one that is coaching these guys and getting them ready for the NHL. So yeah, absolutely great interview. It's always great to catch up with him. The Moose are doing well here. There was a minor hiccup with that 1-0 loss to Laval, but hopefully they're able to pick up a W tomorrow versus Laval at the Iceplex. But yeah, it's just always good to get insights from Pascal.
Yeah, Dave, you talk to Pascal more than probably anybody in this city, given your coverage of the Moose, and it just must be so. There doesn't seem to be any games, and that's refreshing. I think from a player's perspective, players always want to know sort of what they're doing well, where they need to improve. They want their coach to be straightforward and not have any sort of politics going around with their answers. And I think that's what you get from Pascal Vincent, and I think that's why there's such this line of success from the Manitoba Moose organization seamlessly into the Winnipeg Jets organization.
Yeah, and he's Eric Dubois, Pascal Pierre-Luc's father is an assistant coach, works with the defenseman. Marty Johnson works with the forward. So you got to give those guys credit too. It's the entire Richard Bowie, the video coach. They've got a really good staff in place with the Manitoba Moose now. So Pascal Vincent himself would tell you that it's not just about him. It's about his entire team of guys that work with these guys. But there's no question about it. I mean, he's an excellent communicator, both with the media and with his players, and I think that's one thing. And look, don't misunderstand that this is a guy who's going to tell his players the unvarnished truth. I mean, if they're not playing well, they're going to hear about it. Now, he's not going to throw them under the bus with us. He's not going to say, when we're doing a post game, this guy played like crap. He doesn't do that. He doesn't throw his players under the bus. He's not dishonest. He'll tell you, he'll make assessments. He just won't throw his players under the bus. But he's going to bring
perfectly reasonable.
No, I'm just saying. But that's just the kind of person he is, but he'll bring the fire. I mean, and the truth is, it works. All of these guys, whether it's Eric Comrie, Jansen Harkins, Mason Appleton, every player that's played for him under the Moose, they have an affection for him, and it's clear. They don't call him coach, they don't call him Pascal, they all call him Pazzy. I mean, there's just an affection for him as a person that is very clear that these guys, to your point, Drew, will pretty much do anything for this person. So, I mean, again, I think it is a testament to him that his players, he gets that sort of consistent response from players. And I think that, and again, but the players recognize he's not doing it for himself. Well, I mean, obviously he is. He wants to maintain his job. But I mean, the point is they are developing, and again, he's not losing faith in a Logan Stanley. He's saying, this is what you need to do. And he does it. And again, like I said, he's done it consistently. A guy makes a mistake. I mean, I can't think of a specific one, but a guy will make a mistake on a play. He throws them out the next shift. He doesn't bench them because he knows there's a value. He'll use it as a teaching moment. but he doesn't. It's not like a punitive action. And I think,
it's teaching, not discipline.
But there can be. I mean, look, and again,
there's accountability still.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's been situations where guys have missed games, healthy scratch, because they didn't follow the rules. But at the same time, again, and that's not unexpected because that's what coaches do. But at the same time, again, like I said, his results get his methodology, gets results, and those players are moving on to the NHL at whatever pace they are. Again, to as his point, a Kyle Connor, after a season in the AHL, or a Jansen Harkins, who has a less linear path to that NHL role. But again, at the end of the day, that's what we're seeing, is that graduation, and that's ultimately what any organization is going to want from their AHL affiliate, is to see that their players are not just, the top end guys are doing things that are making them successful, but also the entire lineup, or the entire draft table, I should say.
And we thank Pascal for joining us and the Manitoba Moose PR staff for making that interview a reality on this Saturday morning. Nice to see so many of you joining us in the comments section. You're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live here on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. This segment brought to you by Bernstein's Deli, official deli of Illegal Curve Hockey and home of the Illegal Curve Sandwich. Located in the Cordon Village Mall, Bernstein's Deli has been Winnipeg's deli destination for over 30 years. For more information, find them on Facebook or at bernsteinsdeli.com. Whatever you need, Bernstein's Deli is there to help you out. Passover starts tonight. Maybe you need a last-minute order for Passover. Give them a call. Bernstein's Deli, fresh soups. They got great deli, the Illegal Curve Sandwich. They can go on and on and on. Bernstein's Deli, located in the Cordon Village Mall. So before we had Pascal joining us, we were talking about a couple of executives. And executives it's unclear specifically who they are or what they're executives of, aside from an NHL team. But they were
Chief
talking about
Impact Officer.
That's you there, Mr. Ginsburg, Chief Impact Officer of Illegal Curve. They were talking about sort of good trade proposals for the upcoming trade deadline, and they mentioned two involving the Winnipeg Jets, and I want to read both of them and get your guys' thoughts. The first one came: the Nashville Predators trade Matthias Ekholm to the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for Matthew Perreault, a 2021 first-round pick, and defenseman Ville Heinola.
Zero.
To me, there's a 0% chance that trade gets done.
Yeah, move on. I don't think, I told Dave this before the show started, I don't think the Jets are trading either Ville Heinola or Cole Perfetti unless they're getting either a top 4 defenseman, probably top pair defenseman, or a top 6 forward. So those guys to me are untouchable.
And not only that,
any trade, sorry, Dave, I was just going to say any trade involving Perfetti or Heinola better have a player better than Matthias Ekholm coming back. I guess, I just said top 4 defenseman, but what I meant was more
a superstar defenseman, basically.
And Matthias Ekholm can play on your top pair or your second pair. So I'm not saying that Ekholm can't be a top pair defenseman, but you're giving up way too much there. So next.
And the only thing I would add is, why would Nashville want Matthew Perreault? I mean, the Jets don't need to move him out because they'd have the room from a salary cap perspective. And Matthew Perreault's been playing great. So you're not going to.
The only thing about that trade, Dave, that makes sense, is the first round pick. Anything else in that trade doesn't make sense.
I 100% agree with that.
And so that one sort of made my eyes bug out because there was I read.
What was the name of the article again, Drew?
Trades from executive trade proposals. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's what it should have been called, but instead it was something like really good trades, perfect fits for organizations. I thought to myself, in what world? In what world?
Perfect NHL. Sorry, here's exactly perfect NHL trade deadline fits. 9 deals proposed by NHL executives that make sense for both teams. So I suppose if you squint hard enough, that might make a little bit of sense for the Winnipeg Jets, but it's so minute that it's a non-starter.
We'll get to the other. We'll get to the other ones here. The reason why that doesn't make sense is simple. Ville Heinola is a guy that I know that the Jets see as being a player in their top 4 for the next 10 to 15 years. So why are you trading him to get Matthias Ekholm for max this year plus next year? I don't think they would do Ekholm for Heinola straight up.
The Jets, you're saying?
Yeah. So they're going to give up. They're going to give up a first round pick and Matthew Perreault and Heinola to get Ekholm. That's just my opinion. I really don't think you do that move straight up. That's how highly I think of Heinola, and I think how highly the Jets and scouts think of Heinola.
This next one, I don't think is going to happen because it's not in the Jets' MO. But it does. There is an argument that I could hear for it. I think it makes a little bit more sense. The Winnipeg Jets trade Adam Lowry, pending unrestricted free agent, and defenseman Dylan Samberg, who we know the organization likes, to Carolina for defenseman Jake Bean and Morgan Geekie. Now, this one makes a little bit more sense.
No. Again, no. Well, you're giving up too much. Morgan Geekie's a great player from Manitoba. He's from Strathclyde, Manitoba. Great player. Dave knows he won a Calder Cup in the American Hockey League. Great player. You're giving up too much there.
Why are you giving up too much? Jake Bean is going to be certainly probably, he's young still, but he's going to be an NHL defenseman. He already is. He's probably going to be a top 4 NHL defenseman, and you're getting him under control for a while. And, I guess it comes down to, do the Jets think that they're not going to be able to re-sign Adam Lowry? And are they worried about losing Adam Lowry for nothing? I don't think, let me put it to you again. Let me make sure it's clear. I don't think that this trade is going to happen because I think Paul Maurice would lose his mind if he didn't have Adam Lowry to deploy on the Jets roster.
Yeah, that's why when we first brought this up, that's why I said, even if you think the trade is not a total loss from a hockey perspective,
yeah,
the Paul Maurice element is what I was thinking of when I said there's no dice to this happening.
Right, and that's what I agree with. I agree that sometimes it's not unheard of that a general manager do something that a head coach not agree with. I don't believe that that's going to be the case here. It seems like Maurice and Cheveldayoff are fairly simpatico in their thinking.
Well, and remember, he was asked about it when Kevin Cheveldayoff did his availability 10 days ago or whatever it was, and it was clearly said by Paul Maurice that if something gets thought of, especially something that's going to impact his roster, remove a player. No. Kevin Cheveldayoff isn't doing it without discuss. I mean, Paul Maurice isn't saying that he's not doing it, but he says there's been consultation, right? That he gets. It's not as if he just gets it dropped in his lap. By the way, you've just lost roster player A, you're gaining roster player B. That's not the way it happens within the Jets organization. So,
Dave, I don't think. I was just going to say, and I don't think that Cheveldayoff is making trades because out of fear of losing. Okay, first off, if I added up the grand total of those two players, Drew, in the NHL's 46 games, so you're trading your third line center and one of your top defenseman prospects. I think we'd agree after Ville Heinola, Dylan Samberg is your second best D prospect. Mm-hmm. And so you're trading those two players to get, and Morgan Geekie's 22 years old. I talked about it. Charlotte Checkers, he had back-to-back 45-point seasons. He's a really good player.
Yeah.
But is your team better if you trade Lowry and Samberg right now? I'm talking about this year. Are you a better team by acquiring Geekie and Jake Bean? I don't think you are.
Probably
that's not what the Jets need. Jake Bean is not going to be a significant upgrade in your top four.
Because the whole point is, if you're making a trade because you want to have an impact this season. You think you can challenge for the Stanley Cup this season.
Yeah, to me, that's a trade for the future. Like Morgan Geekie's a good player. He's played 18 NHL games.
Yeah, that's what I 100% agree. Like the idea that somehow there's insight that Lowry's not re-signing in Winnipeg and that they don't. First of all, they have the room. I mean, he's not going to be that significant a monetary look. Obviously, we know Kopp needs more. Needs a new contract. Neil Pionk needs a new contract. Adam Lowry's going to need a new contract, and we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Drew, you've talked about it. Is there kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge? We'll have a contract for you. Who knows? We don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, he's going to have options
with regard to the expansion draft.
With regard to the expansion draft, so the Jets, wouldn't have to kind of sign him and protect him. That sort of idea. But the point is, I just don't see, to Ezzy's point, why would you do it right now? You're a team that's challenging right now in the North for first place. You think you've got almost all the parts. There's a 0.0% chance that Paul Maurice would sanction. And again, I know he ultimately doesn't make the decisions, but you want to keep your coach happy. You want to, to your point, be simpatico within the organization. And dealing Adam Lowry, 0% chance.
That would be a kind of trade that you could maybe conceive happening in an off season.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're at the trade
Yes.
deadline, you just don't see trades like that happen.
Exactly.
At the trade
And that's what I kind of meant, Drew. Like Jake Bean, he's a first round pick. He's a really good player. Like again, Dave watches the HL. I mean, Charlotte obviously isn't a team maybe that we see as much as some of the other teams in the Moose division. Like Jake Bean's, there's no doubt he's going to be an NHL defenseman. But he's 22. He's in the same position as a Logan Stanley in terms of I don't think you're trading away necessarily, one prospect for another prospect. That's not what you need. The Jets need to improve that top four. And is Jake Bean that much of a upgrade over, say, a Dylan DeMello or a Derek Forbort? Like, I don't necessarily know that he is. Skill-wise, his upside is higher. But again, I just don't think that necessarily makes the Jets better right now.
Okay, so we've resolved that neither of those two perfect trades, certainly being in quotes there, are going to happen. It's just not realistic. So let's get back to the trade deadline and who the Jets now. We heard from Murat earlier about an hour or so ago, and the talk about Alex Goligoski, coming from Arizona. Pending unrestricted free agent, he carries a significant cap hit right now, but maybe Arizona retains some money. The Jets can make the money work probably. We've talked about David Savard. We've talked about Matthias Ekholm. What about Jamie Alexiak coming from Dallas? We heard that on the broadcast last night. Craig Button, talking about Alexiak maybe being an option for the Winnipeg Jets. I guess, out of Alexiak or Goligoski, because those are the sort of the two newest names that are being bandied about. Josh Manson of Anaheim as well. Do you see a fit for any of those three?
Yeah, I do. I think all three of those defensemen are good defensemen. They're different. I mean, Oleksiak had a nice playoffs last year for the Dallas Stars, and he's a guy, if you guys remember, he was traded to Pittsburgh and then acquired back from Pittsburgh. He's obviously not a guy that you're expecting to light it up offensively. He could chip in a little bit. He's obviously a big frame. What is he, 6'5", 6'6", something like that. The more and more I talk about, potential defensemen for the Jets, the more I lean towards a David Savard or like a Josh Manson, whose dad obviously, had a long career with the Jets and Hawks and other teams. And you wouldn't have to give up as much. Like if we're talking about Savard, I don't think you're giving up a first round pick, are you? Like I don't know if that's the ask from Jarmo Kekalainen. I certainly don't think Josh Manson is going to cost you, a first round pick. So maybe you have to give up a second round pick or third round pick.
Well, is Josh Manson, which of those guys is a bigger upgrade, I guess, for the Winnipeg Jets? Josh Manson is a guy who obviously was well touted, and he's never really been able to take that next step in his development with the Anaheim Ducks.
Yeah, injury.
Well, I think it's the offensive numbers
that.
Yeah, there were injuries, and also he put up. I want to say he had a 35-point season, 40-point season earlier in his career. And I think, sometimes when a guy puts up those numbers, you expect that every year. But obviously, the Ducks are not the same team as they were, 4 years ago or 5 years ago when he had that season. I think they would be an upgrade. Like Goligoski, Murat mentioned this, like Goligoski can play in your top four. It would be an upgrade. It would make your team, deeper. The question then becomes, if the Jets do acquire, whether it's David Savard, Josh Manson, Alex Goligoski, what does that mean for Ville Heinola, and whether the Jets use him? I think we do have to ask the question. Is Heinola a guy that might not play that much for the Jets this year? It's possible. Like we know that he's up with the taxi squad right now, and he could always go back down to the Manitoba Moose, right, Dave? But certainly if you are acquiring one of these defensemen. I mean, we already know when Nathan Beaulieu is healthy, it's going to be tough for him to get back into the lineup with the way Logan Stanley is playing, and then you've got Sami Niku there. But
never say never when it comes to Paul Maurice and veterans.
Well, yeah, I know it's true. I mean, we know he loves those veterans. He won't take Nate Thompson out of the lineup, and unfortunately, it means Jansen Harkins isn't getting into games, right? But Dave, like I look at Jamie Alexiak, we mentioned Goligoski, Manson, Savard, all these guys. I think you acquire if the price is right. I realize that we talk about that a lot on the show and on social media and the website, but that's the thing, that you have going for you if you're Chevy, is that the price isn't going to be that high for some of these players. I think Manson has 1 year left on his contract after this year.
1 year after this year at $4.1 million. It's also worth noting he has a modified no trade clause, which to me probably means that he's got a 12-team no trade, and the Jets are usually always on that list. But obviously,
you don't want to go from Anaheim to Winnipeg. What's wrong with you?
Well, at least if you're coming to Winnipeg, you're not coming in the dead of winter. You're going to be coming in nice April weather.
Me plus 19 on Monday. People are loving it.
That's right. So I mean that's a factor, but I don't think it's necessarily a deal breaker, because we know that Paul Stastny, of course, waived his no trade to come to Winnipeg a couple of years ago when he left St. Louis the first time.
I agree, and I think ultimately, I think what we're hearing, especially from teams like Columbus, we're not necessarily like Columbus is a minus 21 goal differential. Now you're only 3 or 4 points back of, you're in 5th place right now. If you're Columbus, you're behind Chicago by 3 points. You have a minus 21 goal differential, and you're a 500 hockey team. You know, you're 13-13 with 8 OT losses or shootout losses. And to me, I think Jarmo Kekalainen has shown that he is a very savvy GM, and I think
a realist.
But I think what he's doing is, I mean, remember, if people think you're having a fire sale, you know, we're Manitobans. What does that mean? Oh, we're getting bargain based on pricing. You know, we're going to give you a 7th round pick for a player we want. So that would be the kind of the mentality, right? And I think what Jarmo Kekalainen is doing with Columbus, whether he's intending it or not, is getting away from that mentality of saying that they're big sellers. Oh, well, maybe Columbus isn't, because what does that do? It drives up the price. You want David Savard? Okay. You're going to give us a 3rd for him. Now we want a 2nd. You know what I mean? Like, I think I would think that, and I think we see that a lot where GMs will use the media to kind of change that narrative, because the narrative was, and again, because Columbus was in a losing streak, was that the Jackets are, ready to do business. And if you're ready to do business, maybe you're not paying the price. And again, same with Nashville, right? With Nashville's quote back in the race. You know, do you really feel like, do these GMs feel that their teams are sufficient to challenge? And again, it's interesting, right? Because oftentimes we say, well, there's such value in making the playoffs. What's the value in making the playoffs? Is there as an owner? Well, yeah, of course, that's what I'm saying for this year. As an owner, you're not I shouldn't say this, because some American teams are allowing fans in the building, so there is maybe an added incentive in that regard. But at the same time, it's not the normal playoff revenue that we're used to seeing. And I just think again, I could be wrong. It's my own opinion, but I think what David Poile and Jarmo Kekalainen, two savvy, experienced general managers in the National Hockey League, I think what they're doing is they're trying to drive the prices back up and saying, listen, and their teams are helping, because the teams are allowing them to be back in this race. But I think what they're saying is, we're not having, like, unlike the Ducks, which are obviously clearly out of it, we're not having a fire sale. We're still thinking about it. Oh, you want this player? Well, his price has gone up. Yeah, and the thing with David Savard is, we all know that, and again, for those who aren't familiar with Savard's game, he's more of a stay-at-home defenseman. Like, he can chip in a little bit offensively. And in addition, I was going to say, to the fact that he doesn't have any term left on his contract, a big reason, again, for those who don't follow the cap stuff and the Blue Jackets as closely, Seth Jones and Zach Werenski have 1 year left on their deals. They're between $5 and $5.5 million. Their next deals, I don't know, are they going to be 8 million, 9 million? Like, Seth Jones, I realize his analytics aren't great this year, but Jones and Werenski, they're going to get re-signed. And then Vladislav Gavrikov is another guy that they signed to just under 3 million. So that's one of the reasons why David Savard, basically the Blue Jackets probably aren't going to sign Savard long-term. That's what we believe. That's why he's expendable. But you're right, Dave, they're still in the playoff race. And that's why for Chevy, the price to acquire a guy like Savard, the price to acquire Goligoski, like, I don't know, does a 2nd round pick and a prospect, a defensive prospect, does that get you Savard or Goligoski? Like, it probably does, as opposed to, like, I realize it's out there, and Dylan Samberg is a good young defenseman, but you're probably going to have to give up a 1st round pick and somebody like Dylan Samberg to get Matthias Ekholm. Yeah, that's probably the price. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's what David Poile is doing. He's working the phones, and he's working the phones in a manner that says, okay, Boston, you want him? Let's hear what your offer is. And again, it's smart GMing. It's what you need to do. It's what you want to do. You want to drive the price up, because if you're in a team like Nashville, which we talked about, Drew, I remember when we were still doing the show on the radio, Drew was asking, I don't remember who we had on from Nashville when he asked the question, but it was that, what is this team? I think it was Hal Gill. It was Hal Gill. And so, but that's the point. Like, are they a team that's going to be a playoff team, or are they a team that's kind of in that reset mode? And if you're in a reset mode, you got players, you got some good assets that teams are going to want. And David Poile isn't a lightweight. This isn't his first time at the rodeo, and he's gonna drive a hard price for his players that you're going to want. So if you want Matthias Ekholm, you can have him, but you're going to pay a premium for him.
Saturday morning, you're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live here on our YouTube channel and all our social media feeds. This segment brought to you by Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, officially declared the funniest place in Winnipeg by Illegal Curve Hockey. For over 30 years, Rumors has been bringing Winnipeg the best in stand-up comedy. To purchase tickets or for a list of performers and showtimes, visit rumorscomedyclub.com. I'm thrilled to announce May 11th, Rumors is reopening with their annual roast battle. You've heard of March Madness. We're in the midst of it. This is going to be May Madness. 16 of Winnipeg's best comics roasting each other in a bracket championship format. May 11th. It's not that far away. Get your tickets now. rumorscomedyclub.com. They've got all the precautions in place to keep you safe as we're still hopefully winding down from the midst of this pandemic, but Rumors reopening on May the 11th, and maybe between now and then we'll get an opportunity, get some of those roasters to come and roast us here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, although Dave is doing a great job by himself roasting behind there.
That's great news, Drew. Just wanted to quickly say, Dave, Rumors has been on board with us, since the Jets came back in 2011. So it's great to hear that Rumors is going to be fully opening. And I imagine that the Roastmaster General, Jeff Ross, is going to be pretty happy to hear that there's going to be those comedians roasting each other.
Well, we do a pretty good job roasting each other when we're on the show, but yeah, we aren't professional comedians. We just like to make fun of each other.
Well, isn't that what friendship
there's a lot of material to work with here, Dave. Let's be honest.
That is true.
Most of it from you there, Mr. Ginsburg. That's very, very true. Anyways, we're so thrilled that our friends at Rumors are reopening, so you can get your tickets, rumorscomedyclub.com. I want to ask you guys this question. I asked Murat, about an hour and 20 minutes ago or so when he was on with us.
Murat just got his first mean tweet, he said.
I saw that. Don't be mean to Murat, people.
Yeah. I don't think it would be anybody from our...
Who's being mean to Murat?
Some jerk on the internet, some guy, some anonymous troll doing what anonymous trolls like to do. So,
if you put your name behind it, I don't have a problem. If you want to, if you have your name,
if you have a problem with Murat, then you have a problem with me, and you have a problem.
But I'm saying, I don't have a problem with someone taking issue with a position, but it needs to be someone who actually has a name to it, as opposed to X134728, which is also known as his alias.
That's right. You also don't need to be rude. And that's why our chat window over here, which is so great to see differing opinions, but yeah, I haven't seen anything that would be
respectful. Just be a good human being. Like there's no need to be a crummy human being.
There's enough crap in the world right now that this is hockey and everybody loves it and they love to watch it and talk about it and discuss it, but do so in a respectful manner.
Well, exactly. And why would you go like Murat? Not only is he a super talented writer, he's just an awesome guy. He's a sweetheart. So there's no need to start insulting him. And I don't even know what was said, but just be a good human being. That's it.
There's only a couple people on the show who get to be a jerk, and that's us to each other because we're all friends, and it's said with love.
While and the Carolina Hurricanes.
Smash the like button. I see a lot of people giving a thumbs up for smash and giving up the thumbs up for respect. Smash the like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Get alerted each and every time we go live here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. And a reminder, after the game tonight, post-game show, no sleep. Sleep is for the week. We don't need it. Tonight,
we don't sleep.
Probably about 11:35, 11:40, right around there. When the Jets and Flames game ends, we're going to be live with, of course, the Illegal Curve post-game show. But
and then
following us.
I'm definitely going to have a nap.
And then following us, let's not forget.
Yes, the post-game show.
Post-game show with Kenny and Sean. And they went, I listened while I was working and getting the morning papers ready to go. They went till almost 2:00 in the morning last night. Those guys are hardcore. They're bringing the great Jets talk following our show. So it's been a great partnership in that regard that we've been able to have a fairly significant post-game show for folks to participate in. And I love to see it.
And we'll do it again tonight, and we'll do it again, of course, on Monday night and every night that the Winnipeg Jets play. I asked Murat this question. I want to ask you guys this question. You can only, Andrew Kopp or Adam Lowry, if the Jets can only re-sign one to a long-term deal.
What if they can re-sign two?
Well, then this question would be moot, but let's humor me for a second there, Mr. Ginsburg.
I wish I could put you on moot.
I can put you on mute. I can tell you that for sure. I don't think you have that power, but I certainly do. Let me ask you guys this. Which one, if you had to choose, and no fence sitting, Mr. Ginsburg, we know how you enjoy sitting on that fence. Lowry or Kopp? Which one has more long-term value to the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah, I like sitting on that fence. Unfortunately, last time I did that, the fence broke. So, between Andrew Kopp and Adam Lowry, I'm going Andrew Kopp. And, I realize Murata has his reasons for Lowry. Lowry's, both of these guys have been career Jets, right? Drafted and developed by the Jets. They're players that, Kopp, even though, he plays on the wing, he's a guy that can play center. I'm keeping him simply because I think he's a more versatile player, and I think his offensive upside, even though, like what's Kopp, 26 years old, 27 years old at this point, like these guys,
they're basically the same age. I think there's a year apart between them.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you're talking about upside, I mean, at this point, they are what they are. I don't think Andrew Kopp's going to have a 35-goal season. I think he can absolutely, have a 25-goal season, but quite simply, Drew, that's why I'm taking Kopp, because, for his offense and the fact that, we know he can kill penalties. He can play up and down the lineup. I'll let Dave get in here, but if you're asking me, and by the way, guys that I like Lowry, so I hope that the Jets are able to keep both of these guys. But if you're saying that I can't sit on the fence, I'm going Andrew Kopp.
And I appreciate you not trying to sit on the fence there, because usually that is your MO. But as he's going with Kopp, so we have one vote for Kopp right now. We had Murat earlier, and he voted for Lowry. Dave, you get to be the deciding vote. You're the electoral college.
I like how you get to sit on the fence, though. That means you're not going to give us your opinion.
Hey, I'll give it to you after. That's fine.
Okay. Well, I mean, but you sit on the deciding vote. I mean, you could, in theory, tie the vote, and then we'd have to go to the people. The people would be the deciders. They would tell us who that they ultimately think. And we're seeing a lot for Lowry, and some Kopp as well. But and I think ultimately the biggest question for me is, and I'll answer it by starting with not talking about either of those two players, is David Gustafsson. To me, David Gustafsson is that big question mark for this Jets organization. What is he going to be for you? Now, he's not.
This sounds like a fence sit. Is what this sounds like.
Oh yeah. Well, it was a start to a fence sit, but I really think. But the truth is, so David Gustafsson to me is Adam Lowry, but cheaper. I think he's not as tall. He's as strong. I mean, maybe not quite there, but he'll be there eventually. He's as offensively talented. I would say he's probably got a better offensive ability than Adam Lowry does. And I think personally, and again, I this is my own opinion, I think David Gustafsson could replace Adam Lowry. And I think from a perspective of a team that has good contracts right now, but it has to be cognizant of what the salary cap is going to look like. I think, Adam Lowry as a UFA, are you going to have to overpay him because there's going to be a lot of interest with, a team like Calgary, where he's from. Maybe Calgary's interested in Adam Lowry, Seattle. So is there going to be that interest? I would look at these two players as fairly even in terms of, would you rather have Kopp? Would you rather have Lowry? I think both of them I like that Kopp's versatility. I like that Kopp can play center if you need him, but he's also very comfortable going up on that wing. Lowry is a true center, and we always talk about center depth and the need for center depth. And to Ezzy's point, obviously the Jets organization would rather keep both players. There's no question about it. You're especially in terms of what they've been able to do together. So you're number one, obviously, but if you're asking me, Drew, I think David Gustafsson could come in. If you had to keep one, I think Gustafsson could come in and replace Adam Lowry. And I think Kopp would give you that ability, to have that Swiss Army knife that he's come to be able to continue to do what he does. So I would keep Kopp and have Gustafsson come in and give you that Lowry type service with a significantly different price, allowing you to be, a team that's going to be competitive as opposed to up against it. But again, ultimately, do I believe this Jets team is going to keep both Kopp and Lowry? Yeah, that would be my inclination. But if I had to make a choice, I'm going with Kopp.
Let me stop you right there. So you think that it's realistic, or you think that it's, your expectation is that both guys will be here on a long-term basis?
I mean, again, I think if you can make the money work, that's what the organization would want. But again, it becomes a function of what is this organization going to do? Look, if you're going to let David Gustafsson come in and be your fourth line center and play big minutes, fine. But you have to you have guys who are knocking on that door, right? You've got where are you going to put these guys? Are you putting David Gustafsson and Christian Vesalainen on your fourth line? No. A, because that's not the way the coach wants his fourth line to look. B, those aren't really the kind of roles. Gustafsson less so than Vesalainen, but Vesalainen really he's a top 9 if you have a scoring top 3 lines, top 9 wingers. So I mean, again, but no, I mean, look, I answered your question. I'm going to go with Copp.
Yeah, and hopefully, like the Toronto Raptors announced that they're going to be keeping Kyle Lowry. Hopefully, the Jets will be making that announcement, keeping Adam Lowry. And like Dave said, I mean, obviously, we hope that the Jets organization is able to keep both of these guys. But you're right, Drew. Hey, look, they're going to get some more money here. Like their salary is definitely going to be going up, and we expect these guys to sign 4 or 5 year deals. So we'll see if they can make it happen. I see Haley has joined us, so I'm going to shut up now.
That's good, and everybody appreciates that. Haley Salvian from The Athletic. She covers the Calgary Flames, joins us now on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms. Haley, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to see that you guys are able to be doing this here. It's awesome. So thank you.
We appreciate that, Haley. Obviously brought you on to talk about the Calgary Flames, the Jets with their 3-2 victory last night over Calgary. What stood out to me, Haley, is that, entering last night's game, there was no question that the Flames were the more desperate of the two teams. Mm-hmm. Yet you didn't really see any pushback from the Flames until that third period where they were down 2 goals, and they obviously got close. They got to within 1 goal on 2 different times, but they weren't able to complete the comeback. What's the culture of that Flames team that it took until that third period for them to even begin to show any of the fight that you think would be right at the forefront for a team scrapping and crawling and clawing and fighting desperately for their playoff chances?
Yeah, well, I think that if you look at what or you hear what Daryl Sutter said post game, he's like, we had a lot of dopey players who didn't wake up until it was already 1-0, and that's not a new thing that's happened under Daryl Sutter. That's something that we've heard about this Flames team all year, is they didn't start on time, or, they got themselves in a deficit. And their points percentage, once they're down a goal, is terrible. I think they've only won, if memory serves, like 4 or 5 games after being down a goal first. So it's, to me, what this has shown, that is still an issue under Daryl Sutter. It just shows that it is, in fact, a culture problem, not a coaching problem. I think that was maybe up in the air. It was like, okay, well, shouldn't it be the coach that's getting these guys up for games? Like, Jeff Ward's not getting them ready. But, it's still happening here. And it happened with previous coaches in the past. So I think that kind of indicates to me that this is more of a culture problem than a coaching problem. And, I don't want to point fingers. I don't know who that might be. I don't know why that's happening. It's just, when you have even the coach saying that nobody woke up until 1 goal and he called them a bunch of dopey players, like it was, I don't know what to say about that. Like, it's because I thought at first, the first period was, it was an okay hockey game. Like, it was fine. It's just, you can't, be calling these do or die games for the last week and lose 4 straight now, lose 3 of those do or die games, and not really make it interesting for 55 minutes. You can't wait till the last 5 to really start digging in. So.
And Haley, in your most recent column for The Athletic, and we touched on this during the first hour, like the headline is that, the Flames have to start, looking at the core of the team. And obviously all anybody wants to talk about in the hockey world right now is the trade deadline. And you mentioned this in your column that, the Flames aren't mathematically eliminated, but I think you say Dom Lucian in his model, he gives the Flames, if I'm not mistaken, 18% chance of making the playoffs. So, I mean, obviously that's not very good. And it would help if the Flames are able to beat the Jets a couple of times here. But I mean, people are going to start to talk about, what Brad Treliving might do. And obviously, I don't think that you have a crystal ball, but like, is it possible that, Brad Treliving is going to move a Johnny Gaudreau or maybe, a Sean Monahan or, one of the team's top players? Because it looks like, if you look at this from a macro level, this season has been very disappointing for the Flames, and you might have to start thinking about, a year or 2 down the road.
Yeah, I think so. And, I think that This was a very similar conversation. Obviously I was in Ottawa last year, but I think that's a very similar conversation that Flames fans, Flames media were having after last season too. This isn't, once again, this seems to be a theme. Like, this isn't a new thing for the Calgary Flames, talking about, okay, is that enough of this core? How many chances are we going to give them? Because this is a team that has not won a playoff series in almost 6 years, since 2015. That's a really long time to be giving a group of players another shot. I think, you always want to be patient with your core group. We've heard that in Toronto. We've heard them talk about, we're sticking with these guys, but with respect to the Flames, like, this is not Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and William Nylander. So you do have to wonder, how many more times are you going to get, I think. And that's not to discredit a player like Johnny Gaudreau, who I think is an excellent hockey player. I think Johnny's very, very skilled. He was 4th overall in Hart Trophy voting, just 2 years ago. I think he's a very good player. I think there's a lot of good players in that locker room. It's just when you, on paper, and what's actually happening is very different. And I think at some point you have to think, okay, who in this core needs to go? Like, who are we giving the keys to, essentially? Who is going to be the group of players that we can actually win hockey games with? And I think that is part of the reason why this coaching change was made with Daryl Sutter. I think that if there is somebody who can go in and figure out who they can win with, it's going to be Daryl Sutter. I think it was obviously going to always be a really tight turnaround to try to make the playoffs with Daryl Sutter. But now that they've gone 4-5-1 now, it's very clear that, they're obviously going to start, they're still going to try to win games. Like, they're not just going to roll over and say, okay, we're done. Let's start, doing an audit on this hockey team. But I do think that, auditing that group and starting to look towards the future should be very important right now. And I do believe that Daryl Sutter is going to be able to, pull the curtains off, or, figure out who they can win with and who they can't. And I truly believe that, this off season, if it ends in a disappointing fashion, which is looking incredibly likely at this point, they cannot just tinker around the edges and add window dressings. They need to address the core of this hockey team.
Saturday morning, you're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms. We're talking about the Calgary Flames, the Jets and the Flames. The second game of the 3-game series goes later on tonight. Haley Salvian covers the Flames for The Athletic. She's our guest on the show.
And Haley, you don't sign Jacob Markstrom to a 6-year deal for to think, okay, we're going to reset this organization. And that's a little bit of a problem, right? You've got him for 5 more years after this one. So what are you doing? Are you looking at things? I mean, especially from a fan base in Calgary, that's, they want to get back to that Stanley Cup. They want to be a cup winner. They've heard so many things, and it's hard for a fan base when you've been sold on group is going to be able to do it. You bring in a goaltender, and we've had Kevin Woodley on, who watched him, as much as anybody in Vancouver. He raved about Markstrom. So you've got a goaltender in Markstrom, who's probably one of the top goaltenders in the division. What are you doing from this team? Because again, you can't really do a hard reset and sell everything and reset everything. So what would you see this team doing? Is it more of the Ranger mold? I mean, the Rangers got lucky, but kind of like a small reset and then kind of back in contention for next year?
Well, yeah, I think that, not only did, you don't go out and sign Jacob Markstrom, like you said, to that deal to blow it up. You sign him to win. And you don't sign, like, Daryl Sutter's not coming out of retirement. He's not coming off the ranch to oversee a rebuild. It's just, you can't, I don't think anyone could convince me that Daryl Sutter came out of retirement to oversee 3 years of a 5-year rebuild. I just, you make these moves, and with Tanev, you can say that to a lesser extent to Markstrom. Like, you don't go and sign Chris Tanev for 4 years to blow it up. So everything indicates to me that this is a group that wants to win. They just, the way they're built, they're not built to win right now. So I think that, it's not time for a full rebuild. I think there's enough there that a full rebuild's not necessary. I think that there's enough there, depending on who you decide to hand the keys to. If you make Elias Lindholm, Matthew Tkachuk, Noah Hanifin, Tanev, Markstrom, your core, Andrew Mangiapane, Dylan Dubé, and then you start building around that with your retooling pieces. Like that, you don't need a full rebuild when you have players like that. You know, I don't think that they need to blow it up. I don't think it's time to blow it up. I think that it's, like you said, it's going to be a retool. I think that they're going to see what they can do, what they can get in the off season. That's the tricky part, because right now I would say that value is probably fairly low for some of these players because they're having down years, because it's not working. So how do you get the most value? I think your biggest trade chip are players that I mentioned that I would include as your nucleus, Matthew Tkachuk and Elias Lindholm. But do you want to get rid of those two and then build around lesser pieces? You know, those are the kind of things that I think Brad Treliving's going to have to kind of battle with. And I don't know if I see any of that happening at the trade deadline. I see this being more of a rental deadline than usual because of all of the kind of added pieces to this year with the quarantine. I know it's only 7 days now, and you've got the expansion draft coming. You're in a flat salary cap. So it's going to be hard to make a blockbuster deal mid-season, but I could definitely see this being an interesting summer. But I wouldn't say that it's time to blow up the whole thing.
Haley Salvian is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live here on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms. Haley's appearance on the show is brought to you by Boston Pizza. Boston Pizza is the perfect starting lineup tonight with the BP Game Day Meal Deal. Choose 2 of your favorite medium gourmet pizzas, along with a triple order of Boston's famous wings, 2 dipping sauces, all for $54.99. Serves 5 to 6 people. Available for takeout and delivery. Only at bostonpizza.com or download the MyBP app. You know, Haley, you talked about Brad Treliving there, and I mean, my math might be a little bit off, but I believe he's hired now his 803rd coach in his tenure as Flames general manager. Why does he deserve to be the person that leads the Flames through their retool? I mean, shouldn't he sort of be in the quote unquote crosshairs, given the I'm going to use the term mismanagement that's occurred? Probably isn't a fair term, but let's say the lack of results that we've seen in Calgary.
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. You know, I don't know if I truly have the answer to that. Like, I don't know if he should be given those keys. I don't know if he will be given those keys. I think this is now his 7th year as the general manager of the Calgary Flames. And like I said before, they haven't won a playoff round since 2015. And I think there's a really fair, you know, discussion or debate to be had over, is it the core or is it the construction of this team? You know, is it the players' fault that they can't get this done, or is it something that's been constructed of this team that can't get it done? Is it the coaches that Treliving has hired, the pieces he's brought in around them? You know, what's the problem here? And, you know, I think that hiring, I think this Jeff Ward is Jeff Ward. I think Daryl Sutter is the 4th coach that Brad has hired in the last 5 or 6 years. So, you know, I really like Brad Treliving. You know, I think that, you know, I think it's fair to say that there's only so many coaches you can hire before your seat starts to get hot. And I don't know what that number is in Calgary. I mean, I just moved here like 2.5 months ago. But I think it's a fair question. It's one that I don't necessarily have the answer to right now, but I think it's something that, you know, here in Calgary we're going to have to pay attention to, given, you know, a couple seasons of disappointing play, several coaches, and questions around this core. And should the trigger have been pulled sooner? Would this team have been better this year if instead of signing Dominic Simone, Josh Levo, Joachim Nordstrom, they made something around that core? So, you know, I don't know if he's going to be the one to be given the keys. I think there's probably a group of the fan base who believe he shouldn't. And I think it's fair on both sides. I think it's a good question, but I don't know right now. I think we're going to have to see how this plays out and ends.
Haley, I wanted to ask you about Milan Lucic, because obviously in Winnipeg, we were talking a lot about him last night. And the point I was making, we're doing post-game shows now, and the point I was making was, you know, when Lucic took those 2 penalties, it really made it difficult for the Flames to come back in that game because, as you would agree, right? Like, well, I can't say you would agree, but I think you would agree, that the Flames looked like they were, poised to tie that game up yesterday after Lucic, ironically, was the one who scored the goal, right? But I wanted to ask you, like, are you surprised that the league didn't look at that hit? Because we were all talking about how dirty that hit was. Forget about the punch to Neil Pionk to boot. But like, are you surprised that he wasn't suspended or fined? And I don't want to ask you about whether or not you think there's going to be a fight, because quite frankly, I don't think that really matters. But do you think that there's going to be some type of payback, or is this going to be one of those games where it's going to be a little bit chippier maybe than it was last night?
Well, I'm not surprised by anything anymore. We saw Oliver Shillington just get rattled straight in the head from Jujhar Khaira, and there wasn't even a call on the ice. And then, of course, Jujhar Khaira gets knocked out cold by Brett Ritchie. So obviously there was I think that was a situation where the league was like, we're not going to add on to that. Like, the guy was unconscious. He's out for a little bit, so we're not going to hand anything down. But I think there's probably several examples of hits that were as bad or worse than what Milan Lucic did yesterday, that didn't get a call on the ice, that didn't get a suspension. So I'm not surprised anymore by the calls that we see and the calls that we don't see. I could see this being an interesting game. It's back-to-back against the Jets. There's obviously been some added, heat to this rivalry, I guess, since last season with the play-in round. Whether there's some kind of retribution against Lucic, I don't know, because I forgive me, I don't know who it was, but I did see a quote post-game of someone saying, like, that's not what Lucic is like. We know he didn't mean to do that. Like, he's not a dirty player. I don't know.
Blake Wheeler.
It was Blake Wheeler.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if that's what he's saying post-game, like, I don't know, maybe the rest of the room feels the same. Like, this isn't the Matt Tkachuk instant where everyone post-game is talking about how he has a history of doing these things. They're saying, like, no, like, Luch isn't like that. It's okay. So I don't know if it'll carry over. Maybe it will, because there's going to be hopefully more jump to start the game. If you're the Calgary Flames, you can't come out all dopey and not wake up until you're down 1 goal. So maybe that is something that, if the Jets are interested in mixing it up, maybe the Flames will get involved to add a bit of jump to their step. But I think the Wheeler quote spoke to how the Jets maybe felt about Lucic, and that they don't think that that's his reputation of running around to try to get guys out of the game.
Haley, one of the benefits for Winnipeg, folks in Winnipeg, is that you get to watch both the Jets and the Moose, and you have that benefit of seeing the guys fairly regularly. And now with Stockton moving up to Calgary from California for this season, what have you seen? Have you seen and noticed a benefit for the team? Because obviously you still have the taxi squad, so it's not really impacting from call-ups. But what kind of benefit is the organization seeing having their players so close to home as opposed to the way it traditionally is with them being in California?
Yeah, well, I think the big thing is with a season like this is if you want to have guys from the taxi to the AHL or to the NHL, it's a lot more streamlined because they're all in the same building, and you don't have to deal with trying to get someone from California to Alberta quarantine for 14 days. Like, you don't need to do as much of that planning ahead. So I think that's been really great. We obviously haven't seen many guys get called up from the American League and play in the NHL the next day. So it's not like it's something that they've needed, but it's obviously something that we've noticed that's been a benefit in a pandemic year like this. I think it's probably just good for the players too to be so close to the NHL room. Like, they're in the facilities. They, it sounds so corny, but they're so close to what it is that they want. And I do think that that's a really great thing for players. I covered the Toronto Marlies for my first year at the Athletic, and, their facilities at it's now the Ford Performance Center, but their practice facility is maybe a 400 meter walk across the hallway into the Leafs room and the Leafs facility. And, I think that was always a really big thing for those players on the Marlies is like, you can literally see it. Like you're practicing on the Marlies rink and you can look across and see Sheldon Keefe with the Leafs and all the guys that you really want to play with and you want to be there. So I think that's a nice added element to it that, for these guys, they can see what it is that they've wanted for so long. It's so close. Let's try to play our way out of this rink and hop right over. So I think that's like one sneaky little benefit that you maybe don't see on the score sheet or something. But I think it's been unfortunate I haven't been able to get out to any practices or games but prospects has been one of my favorite parts of this game. I did a lot of Belleville Senators stuff last year as well. And Belleville's not in the same facility, but it's only a couple hours away from Ottawa. So that was always really beneficial too. You have a last minute injury and you get a guy in a car immediately from Belleville to Ottawa and they come running in with their bags. So the Flames haven't, especially under Sutter, we haven't seen a ton of changes to their roster in terms of guys getting called up. We haven't been seeing as much taxi squad action. Zach Ronaldo, we've seen some injuries, but we haven't seen too many guys from Stockton come up. But just because we haven't seen it doesn't mean that it's not, very useful and a easier situation for the Flames.
Haley Salvian covers the Calgary Flames for The Athletic. The Jets and the Flames, the second game of the 3-game series, goes later on tonight. Haley, appreciate your time, appreciate your insight. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. There she goes. Haley Salvian does a great job covering the Flames for The Athletic. Let's take our final commercial break. When we come back, we will do some
hopefully Ezzy and I are back.
What was that, Dave? Sorry?
I said hopefully Ezzy and I will be back in time.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully, if you guys can make it back. It takes about 2 minutes for these commercial breaks.
I'm not moving, Drew. I'm staying right here. I am not going to move an inch.
Time yourselves accordingly. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
"We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?"
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
While you can't always count on your team winning, nor your favorite player scoring, one thing you can always count on is Bernstein's Deli. They've expanded their services because the team at Bernstein's Deli wants to accommodate your needs and keep you safe. Open Tuesday to Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to serve you. Head to your phone, in-store or online to shop for groceries or order meals from the restaurant, like the legendary Illegal Curve sandwich. Just go to bernsteinsdeli.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
We're back on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you on this Saturday morning. It's so great to see so many of you in the chat. We always appreciate the support. Hit the like button, smash the subscribe button. Do it right now. Don't miss out on anything Illegal Curve related. Be sure to hit that button. And as a reminder,
You'll be back with us in like
and I have a beef,
hours.
by the way, guys. Like on the post-game shows, you like at one point Drew said gently touch the subscribe button. No. We only do one thing here on Illegal Curve. You smash the subscribe button. Whether we're not obviously literally saying to smash the subscribe button, but that's what you're doing. Even if it's a gentle tap on your tracking pad, you're smashing it.
That's right. Thank you for that.
By subscribing to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, you are agreeing to smash the subscribe button.
Yeah, we're all dumber for having listened to that. May God have mercy on our souls for that. But that notwithstanding, a reminder in about it's about 12 hours from now, maybe a little more than 12 hours from now, the Illegal Curve post-game show will be live here on our YouTube channel after the Jets and Flames game ends. When the final buzzer sounds, we get started with the Illegal Curve post-game show. Be sure to subscribe right now on our YouTube channel. Like I said, that way you'll get alerted each and every time we go live on our channel. So we'll see you again in about 12 or so hours from now. Some final thoughts from you two gentlemen about what you're expecting to see in tonight's game, what we've talked about today, really what's on your mind. Ezzy, if you have any lunch plans that people might be interested in, whatever you want to end the program with, we'll be glad to hear.
Yeah, well, the lunch plans obviously include an Illegal Curve sandwich from Bernstein's Deli, but I might, have an Applejack or something like that after, maybe, bag of chips if there's time. But, great show today, boys. Great guests, obviously, with Murat, Pascal Vincent, and Haley Salvian talking about the Flames, and looking forward to, the next couple of games coming up. But, really looking forward to those games against the Leafs, because we know that a couple of weeks back, the Jets took 5 of 6 from the Leafs, and now the Jets and the Leafs are tied for first in the North Division. So I'm just really looking forward to the last month and a half or so of the season, and just watching these 3 teams battling it out for first. But I'm expecting a chippy game. I know Haley was saying that she wasn't necessarily expecting someone on the Jets to fight Lucic, but there's going to be some rough stuff, boys. I don't think that the Jets were happy with what happened towards the end of that game. So that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting a more physical contest, which is great. I love that style of hockey.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think what it's setting itself up for is going to be some interesting. We've got the Leafs coming into Winnipeg, the 31st and the 2nd, I believe, or the 31st and the 2nd, and before
Wednesday,
that,
Friday.
Yeah, and before that,
they play on April 1st. Just kidding, April Fools.
Oh, anyways, so the point is that
God, we would like to apologize for Ezra Ginsburg. It's sort of the standard caveat that we make at the beginning and end of every show, that we just apologize in advance for Ezra.
Do you guys ever think like how lucky you are to know someone this funny, this handsome, this successful?
Well, I mean,
I think the silence is
we know
supposed to be
the successful part's not real.
So no, but I think it's setting itself up, because you've got the Leafs are taking on the Oilers for the next few games. You've got the Jets finishing off this series with the Flames, and I'd be very curious to see how it looks. Because I mean, that was one thing I was thinking about while Haley was answering about the Flames. I thought it's amazing how focused things are. And look, we're in Canada. We know that hockey is what everybody is talking about and what everybody is focused on. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And when you have a North Division, Paul Maurice has talked about this, it's just that much more significant. And I always think to myself, like, how interesting it is that, you've got a team that could win. Like Drew, I think you made the point earlier in the show. The Jets lose 2 games in a row and the world is ending. Now the Jets have won 3 games in a row. The team itself has done a very good job of remaining even. But the point is, the fan bases generally, get excited or they get crushed. And it was interesting because in Calgary, you had the coaching change, you got your dead cat bounce, as you like to call it, although Peter wouldn't approve of that. And so the reality is you now have a team that's limping, and it'll be very interesting how these things happen, because remember, Edmonton is pissed off with how they played against the Leafs when Toronto went into Edmonton and pumped them. So Edmonton has revenge on their mind. So it'll be interesting to see how this all positions out in a week, because again, or not quite a week, but you know what I mean? Like, will the Jets have now won 5 in a row, feel real good about themselves going into that series? Will the Leafs have been, dinged by the Oilers? I just think it's very curious to, the ups and downs, and watching the ebbs and flows of the season have been quite fascinating. But again, we got to keep our focus on what's happening. And I think it's going to be an extraordinarily interesting beginning. I think that's what folks are going to want to pay attention to, is that first 5-10 minutes of the game. Again, as to whether there's going to be rough stuff, I don't really know. The Jets don't really have that kind of player. I mean, they've got guys who can handle themselves, but they're not exactly like,
it's not just rough. Like, it's not a fight. That's not what I meant, right, Dave?
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking about like physicality. That doesn't have to be rough stuff.
No,
right?
I agree.
Like that's old school. Like, we know there's less fighting in the league than there was.
It's not going to be a line brawl when the game starts.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't think
well, if you do, you're playing into the Flames' hands. You get the Flames united as a team. You get them, and you get the Jets out of their rhythm, right? Well, why would the Jets do that? There's no value. I think, Drew, you said it, and it's right. You get revenge by scoring the game-winning goal on the power play. You get
on
revenge.
A big hit, like Neil Pionk had that big hit on Johnny Hockey, right? Like that's how you win hockey games. Obviously, hits don't win you hockey games, but you know what I mean. And so that's what I think we're going to see out of this game. Let's be honest; these teams don't like each other. They faced each other in the playoffs last year. I mean, obviously, the Jets didn't like how that series ended. Matthew Tkachuk, we remember, was not a major reason why they lost that series, right? Like, he obviously had an impact by taking Scheifele out, but it was other players that did the damage. But I just don't think that the Jets were happy with some liberties, let's say, that the Flames were taking. So yeah, you're right, Dave. The first 5 to 10 minutes, you might see a couple players taking runs at each other, but yeah, don't expect there to be multiple fights in this game. Just because I said that, probably Lowry's going to probably fight Lucic right off the opening faceoff. Maybe similar to what we saw with Blake Wheeler and Evgeny Malkin. Actually, what are we talking about, guys? It's going to be Nick Ehlers that drops the gloves.
That's right.
Well, by the way, as soon as Ezzy said, "Don't expect this," I thought to myself, "Okay, well, that's exactly what's going to happen."
Last words.
Yeah, famous last words from Ezzy. But no, again, watch that first 5-10 minutes. That'll set the pace for the rest of the game, I think.
Exactly right. It'll be in about 9.5 hours time, puck drop, and then after the game, the Illegal Curve Hockey post-game show.
Can I go home? I haven't seen my family in 3 days.
Go home. We don't want you here anymore anyways. Yeah, I'm going to go see my family as well. Dave's going to go see his. We'll be back in about 12 hours for the post-game show. Big thank you to Murata Tesh, Manitoba Moose head coach Pascal Vincent, and Haley Salvian. In case you missed any of the show, you can immediately watch the replay on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our podcast. You can get it sent to your device automatically each and every week. Big thank you to our sponsors, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Bernstein's Deli, Zappia Group Realty, and Boston Pizza. Support these fine local businesses because they support Illegal Curve Hockey. For Ezra Ginsburg, for Dave Minuk, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. Thanks for watching. This has been the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We'll see you in about 12 hours for the post-game show.